The regular meeting of the HABD Board of Commissioners is now called to order. We'll start with a moment of silence. Amen. All right, roll call. Vice Chairman Todd. Dr. Hood.
Here.
Attorney Fantastis. Commissioner Lewis.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Okay, adoption of the agenda.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? All opposed? All right. The agenda is adopted. Recognition of HABD Employee of the Month for December 2019. Mr. Lundy.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have for the presentation of Employee of the Month, we have my Vice President of Human Resources, Ms. Jefferson Mitchell.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Kimberly Abrams is currently employed as the Homeownership Lease Purchase Facilitator under the Real Estate Development and Capital Improvement Department. She has been with the Housing Authority for over 1 year. Ms. Abrams provides outstanding customer service by going over and beyond her required job duties. She manages several successful home buying seminars and projects. These seminars consist of a multitude of resources in partnership with local and real estate agents, home inspectors, mortgage consultants, and bankers, to name a few. Ms. Abrams works diligently with our residents by persuading and offering them realistic and achievable ways to own their own home. In 2019, she was awarded the ARA Best Practice Award for the great work that she does within the homeownership program. Currently, Ms. Abrams has closed on 8 homes and 2 homes pending closing. In the year that she has been employed with the agency, she has increased the home ownership pipeline by 75%. The residents, vendors, and her coworkers all know her as a caring and positive individual who treats all people she comes into contact with as if they are family. Her dedication to HABD Greater Mission makes her a valuable asset to the agency. We would like to introduce the December Employee of the Month, Ms. Kim Abrams.
Good afternoon. Chairman Davis, board members, and Mr. Lundy. I sincerely thank the HABD staff, my real estate development family, and a special thank you to my direct supervisor, Mr. Corey Stallworth, VP of Real Estate Development, for his leadership, motivation, and positive attitude. Thank you all for your recognition, recognizing me as Employee of the Month. I'm truly humbled to receive this honor.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Abrams. Ms. Abrams, don't leave so fast. Some more kudos. Well, I would just like to say I've heard nothing but good things about you since you've been on board here and what you're doing with the home ownership program. So I just want to stress to you to continue to do the great work that you're doing with the home ownership program with our residents. As a lot of you know, home ownership is a very vital part of what we do with the Housing Authority of the Birmingham District, and moving forward with the way we will be repositioning our portfolio. It's even more important that more of our homeowners get involved, more of our residents get involved with the home ownership program. So I just want to thank you for leading the way, and to your supervisor, Mr. Stallworth, thank you for what you do in the Department of Home Ownership. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Any colleague you want to?
No, we just want to partnership on what you were saying.
All right.
Thank you.
Continue doing what you're doing.
Very good. Keep up the great work.
That's why I want to take this opportunity also, Kim, to just publicly thank you for the work that you do here at HABD. Kim is one of those employees. It's very easy to have her as part of our team because home ownership is her passion. And so that's not an area where she stumbled into, at least when she came to HABD. She had been doing this all along. And so it makes my job a lot easier. All I have to do is just make sure you have the resources you need to do your job and kind of get out of the way. But she does a great job. And as was mentioned, she has over 100 and something, we're getting up to 200 families in the pipeline for home ownership, so that's really great. Would you want to state that again for me?
Actually, it's 479.
Wow.
479? Okay, we stand corrected. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Givers Abrams, and I will say, you can go ahead, but I just want to say, you know, home ownership too is my passion, and that's kind of where I got my start in housing counseling and mortgage profession. So I had an opportunity to meet Ms. Abrams, and it didn't take me but about 3 minutes to realize that she knew what she was talking about. And so very good, and kudos to you, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
All right, okay. All right, approval of the minutes for regular meeting December 19th, 2019.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes, regular meeting, December 19th, 2019.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and probably second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that item is approved. All right, we're down to old business. Is there any old business that we need to discuss? I think a lot of the old business that we have is going to be covered under staff reports. I think that's a summary of the old business for a while now, but if there's any old business that you want to bring up, now is the time. Any old business? One thing that I would like to kind of go back to, I think last board meeting we were discussing emergency housing, and I think from having a conversation with Mr. Lundy in committee meeting, I think we got a good we have good clarity on what is considered emergency housing. I think it was just a situation where I think it was just semantics. From my understanding, there are situations that arise where there are emergencies and there are preferences given. I don't think that the housing authority necessarily calls it emergency housing, but I'll let Mr. Lundy speak to that. But I feel more comfortable today than I did last board meeting with getting clarity that there are preferences, and it's not just for homelessness. Right, so there are acts of God, there are things that happen where there are considered emergencies, and residents or prospective residents are given preference when they are faced with those type of calamities, if you will, or certain situations. So, Mr. Lundy, if you just kind of tie it in.
So, Mr. Chairman, you covered it well. The Housing Board has a number of preferences that will address any sort of most emergency situations, whether it's a national, sort of catastrophe, whether there's displacement because of dilapidated housing, whether it's homelessness, even critical housing needs. So if you've got a family who is about to lose their unit, we can give them some consideration. So we have all kinds of preferences that address just about every situation you can name. But we don't have a category called emergency housing. It's just something that doesn't list as one of as part of their terms. So we will be able to address just about any need that any resident, or shall I say, any applicant may have who may be interested in moving to public housing of Section 8. Now, what we, in the committee meeting, we talked about the staff coming to the board meeting next month in February, and we're going to talk about, on the public housing side, we're going to talk about all the local preferences, and we're going to talk about the local preferences on the Section 8 side as well. One other thing I just want to mention too, when we think about our vacancies throughout our 14 sites, we always have some more vacancies at some sites as opposed to other sites. And so there's always that opportunity for families that may not be in an emergency situation to gain housing, affordable housing. They have to go through the process. Part of the challenge is after you go through the selection process and the eligibility process is making the offers and getting the applicant to accept what we have available. And of course, as American citizens, we have options and we have desires. And so, you know, one site might be more desirable than another site. But for all intents and purposes, it's hard for me to think of a situation where a person comes to the housing authority and who's eligible, and we can't get them in a pretty quick fashion. So next month we'll do a deep dive into our local preferences. But what we discussed in the committee meeting, I think we were able to clear that we've got a number of preferences, and there are probably some preferences that we probably could include that we don't have, and so it's just more of a process of more robust discussion about it.
Oh, very good. Commissioner Lewis, did that bring a little bit more clarity?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Thank
very
you
good, very good. 'Cause I think we were kind of talking along the same lines, we were just using the wrong wording.
Wrong words, yes.
You know, and we finally got to the bottom of it to figure out that we were talking the same language.
Yeah.
We just, you
It
know,
was
just
the wrong terminology.
correct, very good. Yeah, all right, so, all right, moving forward, the other item that I did want to discuss is, I know we talked about doing assessments, educational assessments for our communities, and if you could just give us a brief update, Mr. London, where we are with those assessments. I think we looked at maybe doing assessments for all of our communities to kind of get a sense of where we were as far as educational needs for our families, and if you could just give us an update on where we are with that process.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we put out a small procurement solicitation for an entity, a company, to do an assessment of our public housing sites as it relates to educational needs. And we decided that probably the best approach was to have a narrow focus on maybe 2 sites, look at a couple sites, because we think that the assessment that's derived from 1 or 2 sites, we can make some assumptions that those same needs and approaches would typically work across the whole spectrum of our portfolio. So we selected a couple sites, and we put the procurement out. Procurement came back, and I think we got 2 responses, maybe 3 responses, Mr. Jeffers. And we made a selection, small purchase, and so we issued the documentation, we signed the agreement for the company to go and look at those 2 developments. I'm trying to remember which development. Was it Marks Village? Smithfield. Elton. To look at those 2 sites and do an assessment, and then come back to the housing authority, and then we can make an informed decision how we want to move forward with conducting educational services, providing educational services across the 14 sites.
And so, can you give us a ballpark of when you expect for that assessment to be back?
Mr. Edwards, I'm trying to get a sense when we think they'll be done with the assessment.
That I don't know, the contract hasn't been signed yet, I sent it yesterday. So-
Yeah, they have. Oh, on the other side?
Yeah, and then we're gonna do a kickoff meeting, so right now we don't know which of the contracts.
So we'll be asking the consultant to give us ideas to when they'll be able to complete the assessment. We can provide that to the board.
Well, I'll say this, I appreciate you, moving forward with the assessments. I was under the assumption that we would be doing assessments for all 14 sites. Well, all sites excluding Freedom Manor because they don't have the kids. So I definitely wouldn't want to do assessment of Freedom Manor, but I wouldn't make the assumption that just going to 2 sites would give you a snapshot of what's going on all across our different communities. I think all of our communities are different, have different needs. Some may have more kids, more families. Some may, I think that, I wouldn't cluster all of our public housing into one cookie cutter type situation, but maybe that's something you can look at moving forward. But I wouldn't make that assumption. But that's something I guess maybe we can discuss a little later. But hopefully the information that is gathered from those 2 sites, I'm sure that it will gather a lot of information, and I'm sure it'll be a thorough assessment. I just don't know if that's enough to accurately kind of portray what's taking place at all of our sites.
So I would just add that the assessment is just a tool to get a sense of what services are needed, what are some of the deficiencies, educational deficiencies in our public housing communities. I would agree that you would not know that each site would have a specific task or, should I say, a specific structure or plan to address the educational needs. And so what's needed in Marksville is going to be different than maybe what's needed in Smithfield. We understand that. We want to get the ball rolling to try to get, so that we can spend most of the resources on the actual services themselves once they come back with a plan.
That's fair. All right. And Commissioner Lewis?
No, I was thinking the same thing. If you're doing an assessment, I would think we were doing an assessment for all 14 sites and then narrow the needs down according to all the buildings are not clean. Who had the most needs?
And so, certainly could do that. That's a larger purchase. That's a larger procurement. It's a more expensive procurement, and not that that's the driving issue, but it's a larger procurement that takes a lot more. Will take a lot more time. We wanted to get the ball rolling so that we'll get some sense of the educational services, having some communication. I understand they're going to be having some communication with city schools, which is vitally important to get a sense of, and from city schools, from that source, you ought to be able to give some information in terms of all the kids within all 14 sites if you have detailed communication with city schools. We can certainly look at doing a more comprehensive assessment. I think as they get to the various sites, they will start, and once we get to the point of implementing the program, they'll be able to make adjustments based on the specific sites. From our perspective, oftentimes when you do assessments, you do a certain percentage, and you can make some assumption that can be replicated throughout the whole population that you're looking at. And so we just took the approach of let's look at a typical housing site, do an assessment, and make some assumptions. But we do know once we issue an agreement to go forward with the actual programs, that there's going to have to be more in-depth discussion with the residents, the resident leadership, with stakeholders, because we know that what we do at Morton Simpson may be different than what we do at Kimbrough Homes. We understand that fact, and we expect there'll be some adjustments as we move forward.
So in other words, we're saying first we try, we keep on moving, we're not stopping, we're not letting.
Ms. London?
Well, I'm quite as,
I said, so you're saying first we try and we keep moving, we're not stopping?
yeah, we're not stopping, no. This is just the assessment. That's one component. The other, once we get the assessment, then we'll make some recommendations to the board in terms of applying educational programs and activities to all of our sites. And so and that will be a larger scope of work and actually more resources to support those activities.
Well, kind of thinking about this, I think probably would have been a better way to go about it is maybe do a small sample size in each community, right? So you do a 5% assessment, 5% assessment across each community. That way, I think that will give you a better snapshot of what takes place comprehensively. Because you may go to some sites and some sites, there may be more parental involvement than others. And I think the whole idea for this is to get parents involved as well with the kids to provide a family environment for learning. And so, I don't know, but I'm just saying, you may run across some communities where there may be a little bit more parental involvement. You may have some communities that may need a little bit more involvement from the services, but nevertheless, I'm glad we got started at the minimum. Right. So we'll gauge it and see how this goes, Mr. Lundy, and we'll just be waiting to hear back on the success of the assessments.
Very good.
All right. So new business. New business. One of the things that I want to discuss, I know that we had the presentation from BCIA, the last board meeting, and what I would like to do is refer that back to committee so we can have a full throated discussion concerning a clearinghouse, if you will, for vendors looking to do business with the Housing Authority, the Birmingham District. So I would like to put that in the form of a resolution. So I'd like to make a motion. I move to we send the information that we received from the BCIA to committee to have a further discussion to see how we can move forward with some type of clearinghouse, if you will, for our vendors.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, so that resolution is approved and it'll go to committee and we will discuss in committee. Okay. Any other new business? All right. President CEO's report, Mr. Lundy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, residents and staff of the community of Birmingham. I have a pleasure to provide a report for this board this afternoon. I have 3 items that I want to share with you. The first one is the Freedom Manor redevelopment update. And as you know, Freedom Manor represents our only designated senior housing in all of our portfolio. The property was built in the 1980s and has been in dire need of major overhaul of all the systems and building components. And as one of our properties in the rental demonstration assistance demonstration program, which is the RAD program, in October of 2018, we initiated an $8 million redevelopment initiative to transform Freedom Manor into an inviting, vibrant, affordable housing site that will provide quality living for our seniors. And some of the improvements I want to share with you that is been completed at Freedom Manor are as follows. We installed a new roof. We are in the process of installing, we procured some solar panels, a entity to install solar panels so that we would be able to use green energy to handle some of the common areas. There's going to be, we have a new open floor plan. So we've done a little bit of demolition, Commissioner Lewis, and there's an open floor plan for Freedom Manor. We have new bathrooms with ceramic tile floors, new toilets and vanities, new kitchen cabinets, sinks and countertops. We got vinyl plank flooring throughout the apartments. Refurbished common spaces with concrete finished hall floors. We expanded the community room with a kitchen and dedicated resident council office. We have a backup generator, and the new facade is a mixture of finishes consisting of brick and hardboard. We've also included a residential building points to kind of give the building more of a residential look. Heretofore, it really looked more like a commercial building. And so if you drive by there now at Fifth Avenue North, it really does look much better than before. So we're really happy about that. The major renovation is complete. We are currently conducting quality control inspections, and we anticipate that everything will be completed within the next 30 days. Certainly we want to have, and we're currently meeting with the residents, discussing relocation back to the building. And so I think we had a meeting within the last week or so, Commissioner Lewis. We will continue to meet with the residents so that there be a seamless relocation back into the building. So we're really excited about that. The second item is the rental assistance demonstration program, which is RAD, Developer Partner Procurement Solicitation. So currently we have 6 properties that have been approved to participate in the RAD program, which is a HUD redevelopment platform to redevelop public housing. And really using the Section 8 program as that platform. The following is a list of those housing sites that are part of the RAD program. We got London Village, Freedom Manor, Marks Village, Town Brown Village, Morton Simpson, Collegeville, and North Premier Homes. And as you know, London Village and Freedom Manor is well on the way as far as the completion dates for the redevelopment. And on October 21st, 2019, HABD issued a request of qualification for partners to partner with the Housing Authority to create and implement redevelopment plans for the remaining RAD sites. And on December 30th, 2019, HABD hosted a proposal pre-submission conference to provide the public and potential interested companies an opportunity to discuss and have a full-throated dialogue about the solicitation. As an outcome of the pre-submission conference, the original proposal submission date of December 20th, 2019 has been extended to January 13th. And we've just recently received submissions from some of the, from a few couple of developer partners interested in doing business with the housing authority. I will certainly keep you updated. We're going to go through the ranking process and we'll put together a committee to evaluate the proposals. We certainly will keep the board involved, and at some point we will be bringing a recommendation to the board. We certainly will also be doing interviews with these companies, and we would ask that the leadership of the board appoint at least one board member that might want to sit on with the interviews, doing the interviews of this solicitation. I'll keep you updated as relates to that. The third and final thing is the procurement of our legal services update. As you know, our contract with local law firm expired, and HABD opted to conduct a request for proposal solicitation for legal services. And so January 2nd, we submitted a RFP to issue a proposal for legal services, which the due date was January 31st, 2020. The proposals, once they're received, we will appoint an evaluation committee that would evaluate the proposals. We will conduct interviews of the entities that are in the competitive range. We will make recommendations to the board and bring it back to the board. One concern that I have is during the transition of legal services, I anticipate that we're going to have some issues with the eviction process, and as such, we put out a solicitation to have a small purchase for a legal service entity to handle our evictions. The concern that we have is that the TRRs, the tenant accounts receivable, will probably be impacted lower because not having anybody in place to continue the eviction process will have some impact. Hopefully we'll be able to get a company that will be willing to do just the eviction, provide eviction services until we can bring some more legal services under contract. The last thing that I wanted to share was that recently we received notice from our equity partner, RBC, which stands for Royal Bank of Canada. We received notice that they were giving us, returning $2,607,000 to the agency as part of, I think it was part of a loan that the Housing Authority engaged with RBC during the construction of Tuxedo Terrace. And so the way these things work, we get to a certain juncture of development and of compliance and the loan documents, and then they return a certain portion. So we've been working with them for quite some time to get them to return a portion of those loan funds. And so we're really excited to be able to report we've got $2.6 million of funds to come back to the housing authority that we can use for other affordable housing activities. So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lundy. Commissioner Lewis.
As far as the legal process, if a resident is in the middle of an eviction, like right now, and we're without legal, where would that leave the resident if they have to go to court and stuff? Where would they stand?
Well, right now, as I understand it, the attorneys that we have, the legal firm that we have in place now, are not taking any more, rightfully so, not taking any more eviction cases. And so I would imagine that they would complete the ones that they've already started.
That's my
But
question.
the ones that, for example, didn't pay rent this month, didn't pay rent last month and wasn't hadn't started the eviction process, hadn't been turned over to the attorney, but they're going to be in limbo until such time as we can pick up on that. And what happens is that eventually we'll be talking again about the TARs going up, and that's one of the key drivers of people to TARs down, to be able to go through the eviction process very quickly.
Well, yeah, and I'll say this, Commissioner Lewis, we're at this juncture without legal services, and we saw this potentially coming. I hope it wouldn't have gotten to this point, but it's gotten to this point. You know, I'm not pointing fingers here publicly, but we anticipated something like this would happen. And so we are at this point. I hope we can come to a resolution that way we do have coverage. This is not a situation that I would like to be in from the standpoint of the board where we do not have legal coverage. But we were in a situation where I don't think we had any other choice at that time but to move forward. But I think there may be a way where we can continue moving forward with our the proposal process and still have coverage, because I am concerned that, you know, we don't have coverage at this time. So maybe there may be some emergency situations where we can do some type of even maybe not even 30-day contract, but some type of you know, emergency contract for a short period of time, you know, until we can get permanent legal services.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, to the commissioners, I would offer, because we're all concerned in terms of legal services. Typically what happens when you go through this kind of procurement, you know, there's a transition period. And I recall with the previous legal law firm, legal service entities, we ended the contract, but we kept it going on a month-to-month basis until the new firm was able to get a grasp of all the cases. And so it was more of a seamless kind of transition. Because not only eviction, but for other legal services also, there could be some gaps, and some of which it's kind of hard to predict, but you may have a slip and fall that has to be represented. And so that's one way to address it, knowing that we are moving forward with another law firm, and so the House bill is covered.
And so let's continue to dialogue as soon as possible as far as what we need to do concerning the legal services piece, because I too agree that not having coverage is concerning. So let's continue to dialogue with that. Concerning your report, Mr. Lundy, I appreciate the information that you gave us here on the RAD, Developer Partner Procurement solicitation updates. I'm all for progress. I'm all for development, and I don't think there's another game in town right now that will compare to what's taking place with RAD. I think that's pretty much what we're working with. That's the only game in town right now. But I think we can be sensitive and thoughtful about how we move forward with some of our sites. One of my concerns is that with the solicitation, and I expressed this to the President CEO before the solicitation even went out, is that I'm concerned with some of these cluster solicitations where you have 2 or 3, 4 communities and one solicitation. My personal opinion, and I think it borderlines on pretty much weeding out small businesses, minority businesses to even solicit, to even make a bid on some of these projects, because it's so huge. So when you talk about Morton Simpson, Marks Village, and I think Tom Brown, if I'm not mistaken, that's all in one solicitation. I expressed my concern before it even went out, and I didn't want it to go out that way. But nevertheless, the president and CEO thought that was the best way. But I still have a problem with it. I would be more comfortable with doing pulling out these developments, doing site by site. I know sometimes when you collaborate, it may be a little bit more attractive to some developers, and I know we got some creative, sexy things going on with opportunity zones and all that good stuff, and I'm willing to listen, and I'm willing to to think out of the box as well. But at the same time, I think that this is it has a direct impact on small businesses, small developers that wouldn't even bid on this because it's so large. And maybe if it was a way that we could break it up and say, okay, well, John Q developer, you can bid on Marks Village, or you can bid on Tom Brown. That may be a little bit more palatable for me. But I have a major problem with these clusters. And moving forward, I think we need to really take a look at solicitations, and when they go out, making sure that the board has a good grasp of what's going on before the solicitation goes out. For example, I was reading through one RFP, I don't know if it's RFP or RFQ for Smithfield and Illiton, and it's talking about relocating the central office to Smithfield, and I had no knowledge of that. No, that wasn't even discussed. And so I just think we need to know what's going on as a board before these solicitations go out, because when people ask us, hey, well, sometimes I just really can't answer it because I don't know. So I think maybe we need to look at comprehensively. Maybe this is something we can take back to a work session and see how we can develop a plan where before solicitations go out, that there's some type of approval process from the board that we know, okay, this is what's going on here. This is what's going to take place. This is the intent of the agency, so that we're all on the same page. Also, with Freedom Manor, what I'd like to know is that I know it's under RAD, but as far as the ownership is concerned, will the Housing Authority still have ownership of Freedom Manor and the management and maintenance piece? I'd like to know how will that affect HABD?
So, Chairman, Commissioners, with respect to the procurement for the RAD developer partners, it's my understanding that we basically said to the community, come one, come all. You can submit a proposal on one site, you can submit a proposal on multiple sites. And I'll just refer to staff, make sure I didn't miss something. We had a pre-submission, proposal submission conference, and we had a number of express entities that came to the conference. And I personally told them, and staff personally told them, that you could bid on one site or you could bid on a cluster of sites. We are interested in everything that you have to, whatever you want to do, and we will take a look at that and make some decisions. So it's my understanding, unless I'm missing something, that was communicated to the larger community. And then one of the feedback that we got was, well, we need a little bit more time, and that was extended as a part of that. But I personally wanted to be a part of that conference because I wanted to make sure that any questions that any of those proposers had, that we could answer those and clear them up. And sometimes in solicitations, sometimes you grab language from a previous solicitation, and so sometimes stuff get in there that shouldn't. we try to be as careful as we can to make sure that we're clear. And I don't know if there was something that was in there that was lifted from a previous solicitation that probably should have been, but as I understand it, we made it very clear that this is you can submit for one or multiple. And so, and it was, you know, of course, as you said, Sharon, we talked about that, and that's what we try to present, and so that the smaller developer will have an opportunity just like the larger developer could have the same opportunity. So, and I don't know, I know we've got a couple of responses, but we haven't started the evaluation process at this point. We've put the committee together. So that's the information about that solicitation. With respect to Freedom Manor, and I appreciate the question. We've had some conversation with Commissioner Lewis as well. This whole grant platform is much different than the traditional public housing platform. Public housing is a program that's been around for many years, and HUD is doing its best, in my opinion, to move housing authorities beyond public housing to a grant and to a Section 8 platform. And if you follow if you just follow the budgets, public housing hadn't been funded at 100% in God's know how long. The program that is the premier program is the Section 8 program. So they introduced the grant program like 10 years ago. I don't know if it's been that long.
It's 9 or 10 that got 100%.
And so there's a whole lot of moving parts. So when Freedom Manor, and we've had discussions about it, we've had presentations about it to this board. When Freedom Manor completes its renovation, it would be a grant building. The beauty of it is that the housing authority is going to still run the building, okay? But it's a different platform. We will not be getting HUD subsidy through the low rent housing program. It's through the Section 8 program, so it's called something else. It's not the traditional public housing, so it's a Section 8, and we will manage it. We will control the management of it, and we will have full operation ownership, and we'll be able to take care of repairs and that sort of thing. When we have
Anything that we're trying to do where the housing authority is going to maintain it, and we're not developing with a partner, we're trying to do what's called PBRA, project-based rental assistance.
Hold on.
Oh, but,
You want me to go to the mic?
yeah.
So anything that the housing authority is maintaining ownership of, where we're not in partnership with someone, we're doing what's called project-based rental assistance. So like when we did partner with Farrington, they wrote that one, it was already project-based rental assistance. So when we take that over after 2 years of stabilization, we're going to be the owner of it. It will fall under our pilot. It will be sales tax exempt. We can put it under our insurance. Those are some of the main big keys as to why the housing authority wants to maintain the ownership. Not to mention we control everything. We could have done like side companies and done the same thing, but we would not have been able to put it under our insurance. We would not have had the sales tax exempt, and it may or may not have fallen under our pilot. We don't know because we didn't ask it. So if we're going to keep it like Freedom Manor, and we're putting all the money in and doing all the work, then it's going to be project-based rental assistance. If we're going to develop it like we did London Village, we're going to run it through Section 8, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, so that we can at least collect our admin fee.
Okay, so in other words, all the information that you all met and gave the resident has changed.
No.
It's just- Yeah?
It's
Because
not
they
public
told them
housing.
it's not under red. These are the questions that I be getting. I need to know answer on how to answer them. I really do.
It is under RAD, it is not public housing, it's project-based rental assistance. So instead of doing what's called a 50058, we're gonna do a 50059. So there's a set amount of rent out there. I think it's like, say, $640. So whether you pay the housing authority $640 or HUD pays the house, and you pay zero and HUD pays $640, we're gonna send a bill to HUD every month and they're gonna pay us the difference between what the tenant is billed and what the contract rent is for the building. And we're still paying 100% of utilities at Freedom Manor. I mean, just on the generator itself, I went and toured yesterday. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, I needed to see where $8 million went, and it went well. But I wanted to say that that generator will run that building, from what I was told, for 1 week without power, fully operational.
And that's our first generator too, right?
That's the only generator that they have, that I know. But I just needed to brag on that because you said it.
Oh,
I wanted you to know, it was fantastic. I don't have that at my house. I'm sorry, any other questions?
So, is there a stabilization period for?
No, we're 100% owner. Like right now, I'm working with the track system to start putting in the information, so when we're on and we have tenants in, we're able to go ahead and start billing.
Right, okay, very good. Anything else, Mr. Lewis, on that?
no, I think that's all
Okay.
for right now.
Okay, well, you know,
Right now.
okay, all right, well, the key point, well, I know some of the key points is I know that, that Mr. London's staff said that the housing authority will manage and maintain the building. That's right, okay.
And they will go by the waiting list that we already had, they will go by that list. Our returning residents.
Yes, as we discussed in CPAB meeting yesterday, the first to return will be those residents that said they want to go back. And as you know, many of the residents are currently in Smithfield and some other areas, want to go back. So we're going to make sure they have first right to return. When we spoke with the other residents prior to renovation, some opted to take other permanent housing. And went with relatives, and some, maybe one or two took vouchers. Maybe some actually moved to another public housing site. Those are considered permanent housing choices. Now, one of the things that you brought up yesterday was that there's some of those residents that may have moved to, let's say, another site, let's say Islington, that said they want to stay in Islington. If they decide that they want to come back to Freedom Manor, we will let them have option of coming back to Freedom Manor. Now, because we have full control of that. If you got a family that is under a Section 8 voucher lease agreement, it gets a little tricky because they have an agreement with the landlord, and that landlord expects them to be there for a full year, and we wouldn't want them to break that lease agreement, but we would work with them to get on the waiting list so that when the lease has expired, then they can be able to come back into Freedom Manor.
See, that was one of my questions. Some of the residents that did move out before put their name on a waiting list because there was a possibility they said we may not like where we are. So they did put their name on a waiting list before everybody moved out of the building. That's the list I'm talking about. They went on the regular waiting list that Freedom Manor had, so they wanted to make sure that their name was still on the waiting list.
So we certainly would look at that, and I'll speak to staff, and we will, because I know we've talked to every resident, and we documented their information, what they wanted to do. I know Ms. Foster was the driver of that process, and so we will. So we're here. I mean, as just an overall statement, we're here to help the residents. So anybody that lived in Freedom Manor and wants to go back, we want to try to assist them going back. There are certain restrictions we have. If they're under some sort of lease agreement in the private sector, we just can't.
Well, they understand that. They know they can't break the lease,
But
but they can't afford to pay
them.
rent in two places.
As long as they're in good standing, we're gonna work with them and try to get them back in.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. So I just wanted to, we'll move on, but I just want to make sure that, that I'm clear. I did read the RFQ in its entirety. concerning these clusters. And, I didn't read anywhere in there where it said that, that they would be evaluated on one site. I could have overlooked it, and if I did, I apologize publicly. But it still concerns me that a smaller company would be competing against a larger company that had the capacity to do all three developments, and I'm concerned that the smaller companies will not even score in the competitive range because you do have a cluster of sites. And when you look at the evaluation process, when you look at the different categories, I don't think they have a chance, to be honest with you. And so that's just my opinion. I don't think they have a shot. And basically, looking at the previous RFP that went out for, it escapes me, the one we did, one for the vouchers, it pretty much played out just the way I thought it would. A lot of your larger nonprofit companies scored in the competitive range, and your smaller companies, some small, some maybe not as small, did not score in the competitive range. So I'm going to keep a close eye on it, because I definitely have a problem with it. I expressed my concerns, and I'm going to continue to express my concerns, and I'm going to continue to see how we can provide a level playing field, because right now I just don't think that's the case. All right. Moving forward. Any other comments?
I'll just say, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I'd be happy to have one of my staff talk about just briefly about the actual document itself and what we put out in the community to bring clarity. Because that was my understanding, that everybody had an opportunity, and the vision was the hope that we would have multiple proposals, that we have enough work, that we can probably give just about everybody who was rated in the competitive range some work. And so that was the whole idea from the beginning. So if I'm missing something, I would like my staff to clarify that in terms of what we put out. Mrs. Clark and Mr.
Well, look, I know we have a lot of reports moving forward here. We got 7 staff reports moving forward. Maybe that's something that we can put on attached to the next meeting. But I'm just expressing my concerns. I read it pretty thoroughly, and I know what I read. So clarification is helpful, but I know what I read there. So, but we can kind of discuss that at the next board meeting. I want to provide some clarity on that. And a lot of it, I just think is just, it's internal. I mean, I just think it's just the way it's set up is just weighted against small and minority businesses. But moving forward, financial services, Mr. London.
Yes, I have my Vice President of Financial Services, Ms. Abington, and we have one report and 2 items for your consideration. Ms. Abington.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so first I have public housing and central office financial statements, and these are as of November 30th. And if there's a deviation from budget to actual of more than 10%, I'll give you an explanation as to why. So number 1 is mod inspector salaries, and we're down 1 position. We have it budgeted, we just haven't filled it. Number 2 is other income, and that is the city generally would send us $160,000, and we budgeted for it, but they took us out of their budget. Number 3 is insurance proceeds, and I've been receiving, these are for fire damage units, and I'm actually receiving during the month of January the insurance proceeds, so I'll have those when I do January's financials. Number 4 is office expense, and we're under budget in office expense, and the only thing I can attribute that to is maybe the employees care about paper, and they're just using less paper. Number 5 is tenant services, and this is specific to resident participation funds. And At this point, we only had one resident council that had requested their resident participation funds, or they may have requested it, but requested it and had the appropriate documentation to get their resident participation funds. Number 6 is gas. We're under budget in gas. As of November, it really had been cold outside. Number 7 and number 8 are together. They are materials and contract costs, and both of those are over budget. This is because we prepare for our fiscal inspections for REAC during the months of July, August, and September, and a lot of times we're paying in November, October, and November for services that were rendered. We only do that once a year, and so we're generally running a little heavy at the beginning of the year. And number 9 is capital addition assets, and we're over budget. Those are the fire damaged units that HABD is fixing. So we haven't received the money for number 3, but we've put the expenses out for number 9. All in all, though, we're at about $185,000 profit, and I don't anticipate that continuing because we're zero budget, and so it will play out throughout the rest of the year. Any questions? Thank you. The next one is tenant accounts receivable, and we all know that during the month of December, the sheriff does not evict as often as they will in any of the other months, and these, because of November and December, with Thanksgiving and Christmas, they don't do as many. So at about $21,164 worth of evictions. Of that, the rent was $15,300. Maintenance charges were $300. I don't have any late fees, so that finally removing the late fees dropped off, and it seems like it's dropped out of the majority of them. Legal fees were $5,865. And then fees that were issued after the judge had issued the writ for the person to vacate our property were $6,000. And to date, so far, for the calendar year of 2019, we've collected $36,000 in our MIS system for bad debts that we had written off. And then I did the comparison of this fiscal year compared to last fiscal year, and we are $107,000 under what we had written off in the prior fiscal year. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? All right, if I can entertain a motion. I'll go ahead. I move to approve the charge-off period ending December 31st, 2019. All right, so moving properly second, all in favor? All opposed? All right, that item's approved.
Thank you, Commissioners. Lance Schmidt from Clifton Larson Allen is here, and he is going to present the audited financials.
Thank you.
And I have a presentation for you.
All right. Yes, Mr. Allen, is that it?
Lance Schmidt.
Schmidt, okay, Mr. Schmidt. Yeah, thank you. We met in detail with the audit committee, and so if you could give us the revised version of this report. We went into detail concerning the matters in this report. Our internal auditor has reviewed this report, and we feel comfortable with this report. We will allow you to speak and kind of give a brief overview of the report, but you don't have to go through every page.
Okay.
We feel very comfortable with this report, but we'll allow you to report. And once you get finished with your report, then we're going to allow our internal auditor to come up and to speak, to make sure that she's okay with this report. And after that, we are going to make sure that you are aware of the new structure that will take place moving forward with the auditing process.
Sounds great.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you. I do appreciate the opportunity to present to the board this morning, or I should say this afternoon. Just for the record, my name is Lance Schmidt, and I did serve as the engagement principal on your audit, and actually work with the firm of Clifton Larson. And so, just a little bit about, just to recap kind of the results of the audit. Just to clarify, this was our first year working with the Housing Authority. And so if you're not familiar with our firm, we're highly specialized within kind of our structure, our team, the team that worked on your audit, they spend 100% of their time working on housing authorities. So whenever we came in, we weren't necessarily asking, what is a voucher and, how does this HUD program work? This is something that we do on a regular basis and eat, live, and breathe this type of work. So again, it's a pleasure to work with everyone. Chairman, just at your direction, just to kind of simplify and expedite the presentation, I just want to spend probably just time on the very first page, which is our audit summary. Just want to recap exactly what you hired us to do. The first thing is what you would probably expect or think of, which is the audit of the financial statements and the footnotes. And of course, we did that for the year ended June 30, 2018. In addition, we also do a federal compliance audit. And so when we talk about the federal compliance audit, you may have heard that referred to as a single audit or a uniform guidance audit. We're not talking about looking at numbers per se. We're talking about actually, looking at tenant files, wait list, inspections, various reports that go to HUD, et cetera. So we're going well beyond just the numbers and getting really into the details of how these programs work. This year we looked at the Housing Choice Voucher Program as our program that we looked at this year. We rotate those every 3 years. All your major programs will be looked at. In addition to that compliance audit, we also issue an agreed upon procedure. So there's a report that goes to HUD. We attest that the information you've reported to HUD agrees to the audited financial statements you have in front of you. And then lastly, we do a data collection form, which is basically an informational form that goes to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, where they want to see that the federal money is being spent, who's spending it, and what the results of the audit are. So we do that as well. Just to recap on those few things that I said that we do as part of our audit, we issue 3 reports. The first one is our report on the financial statements. Glad to report today that you received an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is the best audit report you can receive. We use the term unmodified because we're able to say everything looks good, and we don't have to say except for. If we had to say except for because there were issues, we would have a qualified report. So I'm glad to report, again, a very clean audit report, the best report you can receive. As it relates to our compliance audit, we also issued an opinion on that. You also received an unmodified opinion, which means as it relates to the Housing Choice Voucher Program, we found no material compliance issues or anything to be concerned with there. So again, very good news for the Housing Authority. I can tell you that is not something that happens everywhere. That is tough to do. We literally look at thousands of attributes related to the Housing Choice Voucher Program to ensure compliance there. So again, very good news. And then lastly, we also issue a report that we commonly refer to as a gas report or a yellow book report. It's required anytime we work with the government. That report basically discloses any matters or other items that we need to disclose related to the preparation of your financial statements. And so, Chairman, I know this has gone, you guys have gone over the one comment that we had there in great detail, so I won't go over that again, but we did have one item to report there as well. And so, certainly as we go about doing our audit, we're not the FBI, we're not the Sheriff's Office or Police Department. We can't come in here and just demand that we get certain information. It takes a lot of collaboration with management and other members of the organization. So I think many of the staff in the room have probably seen our folks, whether it's in HR, finance, the Housing Choice Voucher Department, procurement. I've talked a lot with your internal auditor as well. And so certainly there's a lot of people that are involved. And so I do want to publicly say thank you to all the staff, especially Mr. Lundy and Ms. Avington, taking a lot of the burden, the finance department as well. They were extremely helpful in getting us the information. And so with that, just for the sake of expediency, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to take those or anything I can answer about the results of our audit.
I don't think we have any questions, but.
All right, sounds good.
So what I would like to do then, Mr. Smith, is allow the internal auditor to come forward. I know she came on board while the process has already been completed, but just kind of wanted you can stay there, Mr. Smith, just kind of wanted you to understand the process moving forward. Now we do have an audit committee, so Mrs. Todd, she works closely with the audit committee, and she will be the liaison between your staff and the housing authority, moving forward with the audit process. So it's kind of want to make sure you understand our new structure. We do have an audit committee, and the audit committee will kind of lead this process, and the internal auditor will be directing that process.
So that's great.
Right, and we did talk about
Okay,
it.
very good, very good. Okay, and while you're here, Ms. Todd, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the audit report. I
Yes.
just want to get you on record.
Yes,
Okay.
I agree with the audit report and the finding.
Okay. All right, very good. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so this time I think the board needs to approve the audited financial statements with the independent audit report for a period ending June 30th, 2018. So I would like to move to approve the HABD audited financial statements with independent audit report for a period ending June 30th, 2018. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, audit's approved. All right, human resources, Mr. Lundy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have my Vice President of Human Resources, Mr. Mitchell, share one item for your consideration. Ms. Mitchell.
Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon.
So just to kind of give you some background for the new board members, back in March of 2019, we brought to the board to remove the gap health insurance for retirees. And the reason why we brought it to the board is because it was causing a liability for the agency. And I have Ms. Abity come up to speak about the financials about the liability. So the liability for 2018 was going to be $550,000, and then we would also have to pay an actuary to complete the calculations, and that would be $7,000 a year. So we talked to our attorney, we talked to Lance, the auditor, on several different occasions, because we thought that maybe if we changed the verbiage, the language, that maybe we could still keep this gap insurance and it wouldn't be a liability. But after going through all of that, we realized that there was no way, and again, talking to our attorney, talking with the auditor, that there was no language we could put in there that would allow us to not receive a liability. And so, of course, the board did not want us to cut that benefit out. And so we're bringing it back to the board. And if you look at your attachment, you have an attachment from March when we initially brought it to the board to remove it. And then you also have an attachment, which is page 87. The medical, dental, other insurance benefits in red. That's the policy that was approved back in 2012. And so we're requesting the board to approve for us to put that policy back in place, and then also just pay for the liability and then also the actuary of $7,000 a year. And I'm gonna have Ms. Abity come up and discuss the financial piece of it.
Do you have any questions?
So my question would be, so when we approve to, I guess, cancel the gap insurance coverage, from that period, from the cancellation period up until this point, were there any employees that were eligible to receive gap insurance coverage and did not receive it based on the policy?
No. There was one, because we put may.
Yeah,
But
we
we
did.
may, we didn't say we're eliminating it, we said we may provide this. And I think one person asked for it, one person received it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, yeah, the gap insurance wasn't eliminated. And one of the concerns that this board expressed was that the new proposed policy, which you voted to approve for that time, because you had concerns, was the language about may. And we had some discussion about how we can come up with a objective way to assess anybody's request to receive the gap insurance. And so the board directed us to go back to try to bring it back to the board with more clarity, and so that we feel better about it. And since that time, I think it was one person who made an appointment with me to consider for me to consider the gap insurance, and absolutely, we gave them that gap insurance, so, it didn't have any negative impact on
Very good.
And the only other thing, I don't think she said it in her action, but I believe we wrote it in that action, was that if in the future this becomes a detriment to the housing authority, meaning that they just can't afford it, it'll have to come back to you guys to determine if you want to continue to benefit. So it'll be evaluated every year. It went up from 18 to 19, about $50,000. So it will go up, it will go down. If there comes a time that the agency cannot afford it, then it'll come back to the board.
Yeah. Well, and my recommendation is let's take a look at it annually before the budget is passed, right? So let's.
It's hard to budget because we have plenty of employees who could qualify, but they choose to keep their jobs. This is just for those who, and the way that they do it, somebody who started last year and is 20 years old, they're putting a liability on our books for that person today, saying 20 years from now, when they were 16 years from now, when they're whatever, it's going on the books today.
Yeah, but you can budget for the actuary amount and
Oh,
those
the
factors.
actuary, certainly,
Right,
yes.
so, my point is, let's take a look at it and annually, and let's discuss it in our pre-budget meeting to see if that's something that we can continue, based on the actuals and what we have budgeted moving forward.
I mean, we could always seem to afford the expense, it's the liability and stuff, so it's adding like a cost of one person by having the actuary.
Yeah. Well, at least now we know what the actuary amount is, right?
Yeah, well, it's gonna go up and down, it'll go up
Right.
one year, and then the next year they'll revise the prior year, so one year I'm gonna pay more than I am the next.
So it's 1 year, the actuary is done annually, right?
It's done annually.
Okay, all right. Okay.
All right, so you're requesting you approve the add the policy back.
All right, so I move to approve the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Health Insurance Gap Program for eligible employees. All right, so we move to property second, all in favor? All opposed? All right, that item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, staff reports, Mr. Lundy.
Yes, our first report is our public safety report, and we have from the City of Birmingham Police Department, Deputy Chief Davenport, and I believe he has with him Captain Finney to do the report. Deputy Chief Davenport. And let me just share with the board, our Director of Public Safety couldn't be here today. He had a family matter he had to attend to, so but we're well covered. Deputy Chief.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lundy, Commissioners and community members. On March 7th, 2019, I met with Mr. Lundy and we discussed this concept called the Community Safety Partnership. And really that would be Birmingham Police Department providing law enforcement services to all the housing communities. And it really had three goals, to reduce crime and improve relationships and partnerships. And part of that was to deal with three things, prevention, intervention, and education. And I think that since we implemented the Community Safety Partnership, which was on October 23rd of last year, we've actually met our goals. As the Deputy Chief over the Patrol Bureau, I pay attention to all the crime in each housing development daily. I have a meeting each day where I go over the crime and the issues in the development, and I provide direction to my captain, Captain Finney, that's behind me, and the members that are actually policing the housing communities. And I have what I believe some good news to report, but I will tell you this thing about relationships and partnerships are key. We cannot, as a police department, be effective in the housing community if we don't have relationships and we don't have partnerships. We are not there when crime occurs. We often get there after the fact. And we are depending on the residents in those communities to provide us with the information necessary to intervene and go after those bad actors who are making the communities unsafe for the residents, for the children, and for the families. And at the end of the day, everybody wants a safe neighborhood. Everybody wants to feel good about being at home. And I'm going to report the crime numbers, but I will tell you, as it relates to partnerships and relationships. One of the things that we did this year is that we partnership with the Housing Authority, KISS FM, and the Mayor's Office of Peace and Policy. And in December of this year, we did something kind of innovative. And I've only been in this city a little less than a year. We actually went to Huffman High School and had them build a sleigh for us. And I don't know if you guys saw the sleigh that we went through the housing developments, but we gave over 4,000 toys to many of the kids that live in the development. And I will tell you, this was important to me, and it touches me in my heart. In one of the developments, there was a young man, and I looked at this young man, and he had an angry face, just a very angry face. And we told him to come over the sleigh, and he wouldn't. I took a bicycle off the back of our pickup truck, and I gave it to that young man. And as we were riding through the development, giving other people toys, one of the things I saw as we were driving through still, I saw that young man. And at this point, he was riding that bicycle, and he had a real big smile on his face. I will tell you, that makes a difference, because now we have somebody that we can work with that might provide us information that might be successful in preventing a crime or the apprehension of a suspect. Unfortunately, today, we got a call in Kimbrough housing development, and it turned it into a barricaded suspect. We actually had a murder suspect that had barricaded himself in one of the developments and was armed with a gun. We would not have gotten that information if we did not have relationships with folks in the development. And he would have remained in that development with that gun and under the influence of drugs, and we don't know what could have happened. But because of the partnerships we have, we got that call, we were able to deploy at that location and use what we would say less lethal tactics, and we were able to get that community member into custody. And I will tell you, because of those relationships and because of that arrest, that community is now safer. And I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind about that. Before we put our officers out in the field on the October 23rd, one of the things I was concerned about is training. Okay, we got cops, and we've trained them, but we know that in any occupation, training's provided, but we have to constantly retrain our people. And one of the things that I was really concerned about is this whole ideal of building relationships, understanding the law, and even understanding the law is important, but more important is the relationships. And I will tell a quick story. Everybody probably watched Barney Five and Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers the story. And although they knew the law, if they had not had the relationships with the people that lived in Mayberry, they wouldn't have been effective. And so part of it is giving our officers the skill sets, the interpersonal skills, so that they can build those relationships. And sometimes these relationships can be challenging. I will tell you, since our inception, this is the crime numbers for the housing developments. Our aggravated assaults are down 45.88%. Our auto thefts are down 69.23%. Our homicides are down 50%. Our sexual assaults are down. Our robberies are down 50%. Thefts were down 38%, and our UBEVs are down 72%. We're actually struggling in two areas. One of the areas was burglaries. One of the things that we tried to do by bringing toys to the community was we were really trying to get ahead of the burglaries and thefts. And our thought process is that if we brought stuff to the community, some of the kids that might not have received a toy might be inclined not to commit a theft and might be inclined not to commit a burglary. I will tell you that we were not as successful as we wanted to be, but let me tell you, I'm sure that what we did impact the crime numbers, because there was probably a kid that thought about doing something, but now he or she has a new bicycle, and because they have a new bicycle, the thought that they initially had is no longer a thought. I'm very proud of what we've done in the housing communities, but let me tell you, one crime one victim is one crime and one victim too much. We have a lot of work to do. And in terms of relationships, we still have a lot of work to do. We have challenges. I will tell you, since 2020 it started out, we're seeing some upticks in the housing development as it relates to our crime. We are taking, we're using some effective strategies to surgically go in and remove those community members that are causing those problems. Almost daily, we're getting information from community members telling us who's causing the problems so that we can be very surgical in what we do. I look forward to the rest of this year. You will find a police department that will continue to be innovative. I will keep my arms wrapped around what's going on in the housing development, and each and every day I will get a brief, and we will stay committed to the reduction of crime, not only to the reduction of crime, but ensuring that everyone that lives in and around the business with the housing communities, that they're safe. As a police department, our effectiveness is measured in our ability to prevent crime. If we can't prevent it, our ability to solve the crime. And so we're going to try to make sure that we're doing, first of all, the prevention. If that's not successful, we're going to try to make sure that we're making the appropriate arrest and giving the folks who have been victimized some sense of closure, whether it be a violent crime or if it's a property crime, trying to get their property back to them. That really sums up the public safety report. Are there questions that the board has for me or Captain Finney?
So we attended a town hall meeting at Morton Simpson. I think that was last week, I think it was. And some of the residents expressed concern about maybe having a dedicated officer at Morton Simpson. I think the way it's set up now, you correct me if I'm wrong, there's someone that's assigned for Morton Simpson and Tom Brown, and they go back and forth. And so some of the residents were concerned that maybe they were wanting a dedicated officer, if you will, for Morton Simpson, and they would feel a lot safer if there were an officer there pretty much all the time.
You know what? And I wish we could do that. But let me tell you the reality of it. Is that, and I'll try to put it in a scenario that we have incidents that are occurring at all the developments. Not all of them, but we have incidents that are occurring, and we have limited amount of resources. And I'll put it in this thing. We know that we have a number of developments, but in one development, there's a fire. And in the other developments, is no fire. We want to make sure our fire truck is at the development where there's a fire, because we want to put out that fire. And then part of it is, and I give you the same scenario with our officers. There are a limited number of officers, and in some developments, we're having more issues than other developments. And at the time those incidents are starting to occur, we have to put our resources there. Not only do we have to put our resources there when the incident is occurring, but we need to be able to keep the resource there, because if we don't, what's going to occur is that the incidents will reoccur. And although many of the residents might not see a police officer in the development, it does not mean that we're not there. It does not mean that we're not monitoring an activity. And so we want to be very strategic and effective as it relates to our resources, and daily we decide where those resources are going to be deployed. Now I will tell you, each of the developments, every day, a police officer will come into that development. But as incidents are starting to sprout up in those other developments, we're moving those resources to deal with those emerging incidents. And we're doing the best we can. It's not going to be perfect, but we want to make sure that we're effective in the terms of the deployment of the officers.
Very good. All right. Any questions concerning? All right. Thank you, Mr. Dearborn.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, our next report is regarding the H. Truman Scholarship Foundation, and we'll have my Section 3 coordinator, Ms. Jackie French, who also serves as the chairperson of the Naomi H. Truman Scholarship Foundation Board of Directors. Ms. French.
Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Good afternoon, Mr. Lundy, Chair, Board, members of the audience. I count it a privilege to stand here before you to share with you some of the great things that this organization has done. This organization we are really changing some lives. We're assisting in changing some lives in the lives of our residents. We're going to start off with our founder, okay? Ms. Naomi H. Truman. Ms. Truman served as Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Birmingham District from 2008 to 2015. Ms. Truman believed in education and ensuring opportunities were available to all who seek them. As our motto illustrates, the mission of the foundation is to encourage the best in all of us. The Naomi H. Truman Scholarship Foundation, formerly known as the HABD Scholarship Foundation, was founded in 2012 to provide financial assistance to residents in public housing and Section 8. The goal of the foundation is to remove any barrier to education achievement for residents who desire higher education or professional training. So the scholarship foundation, the scholarship application is normally open. If any of our residents wanted to receive a scholarship for higher education, if they're seeking an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, they can get up to $2,500 per term, as long as they meet the qualifying criteria. So, like I said, the application goes out primarily 3 times a year. Now, we understand that college is just not for everybody. So we do offer a scholarship up to $2,000 one time for residents who are seeking a certification. Now, we say it's one time because we're not in the business of making everybody, a jack of all trades. We're not paying for a license to drive a truck, and then you come back and you want to be a cosmetologist, and then we're not in the business to do that. But we want to make sure that our residents will succeed in whatever career that they wanted to pursue. So let's meet our new board, okay? Myself, I'm president. Our new vice president is Mr. Armand Matthews. Treasurer is Dontrell Foster. Our secretary is Lisa Armstrong. Tracy Ridley is director. William Blankenship, director. Calandra Jefferson Mitchell, director. Commissioner Cardell Davis, director. President Michael O'Lundy is an ex officio member. So as a board, we meet no less than 4 times a year. During these meetings, we talk about the financial outlook of the organization, ways we can reach more residents, and also the operation of the foundation as a whole. Now, how do we get our funding? As of right now, we have 3 streams of funding. The first stream is our HABD Employee Scholarship Fundraiser Luncheon. I had a time putting those words together. I could not name that to save my life. But I think that says pretty much what it is. The George A. Pegues Memorial Family Self-Sufficiency Golf Tournament. And then also Block A. So starting with the employee luncheon. This luncheon occurs once a year around March. On an average, we raise with our employee scholarship fundraising luncheon. On average, we raise about $49,000 from the generosity of our employees. We are actually in the planning stages of that fundraiser as we speak. We're going to start early. March will be here before we know it. The golf tournament. With this golf tournament, it occurs once a year around the month of September. Now, we share the fundraising efforts with the FSS and Ross programs. The proceeds from this event are split between both programs. The foundation share from this event is on an average of $28,000 a year. Blockade parking. Okay, this is we can call it a fundraiser, but Blockade is located off of Abraham Woods Jr. Boulevard. The foundation receives 100% of the proceeds from parking rental. We receive an average of $40,000 a year from this fundraiser. Scholarships. So as of January 2020, the foundation has awarded 92 scholarships to residents of public housing in Section 8. Now, I think we deserve a hand, but 92 scholarships. And with those, we've awarded over $125,000 in scholarships to public housing in Section 8. That is, we're definitely changing some lives. Where are the scholarships going? Now, as you can see, we're not just limited to what's going on here in Birmingham. We are encouraging our residents to reach for the stars. You can go wherever you want to go. If your GPA says you can go to Harvard, then you need some financing to go to Harvard, then we're right there. If you don't want to go to school, let's say, Paul Mitchell, we had a young lady that she's graduated and she's doing hair and making good money doing it. So we're encouraging our residents, whatever they want to do, we're there for them to see them through to the finish line. Speaking of the finish line, if y'all may not know, everybody knows Miss Adrienne Gaston. She's graduated in December of 2019. She's graduated with a bachelor's degree in computer science from Stanford University. Also, Ms. Gaston is one of our employees. I think she's still working with us. But Ms. Gaston is a perfect example of what the programs that housing can do for you. Ms. Gaston took a part of Section 3, FSS. She's now on her way to home ownership. So she's taking advantage of everything, scholarship, everything that we've had to offer to make her self-sufficient. She has really taken advantage of that. And we totally, we totally congratulate her for that. Moving forward, we are in the process, we have scheduled a meeting within probably like maybe 2 or 3 weeks for the board to come up with a budget. And we'll be coming back to you guys to talk to you about the budget and what we have, what plans we have for the future. Like I said, that meeting will occur within 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll be coming back to the board. I believe we have to discuss that and get approval, and just keep you guys abreast of what we're doing. Also, I haven't seen a college fair. We send our kids out. I believe we're missing some people that want to go to college. I believe we're missing some people that maybe if college is not for them. We want to bring schools in. We want to bring in institutions that have trades. We want to bring in anything that can help our residents not only just go out into the world and get a job, but we want to promote them in their careers. We're also developing more resources for funding. The 3 that we have are great, but I see this foundation growing with applicants. So when it grows with applicants, we need more money. So we're going to be discussing more ways of funding. And then also developing high school and collegiate partnerships. That's another thing. We got to get the word out. We do a pretty good job with the community centers, with the asset managers, letting the residents know of the programs that we have. But once again, I believe we may be missing some people. So we're going to get out there and start building some more partnerships with high schools and colleges. Okay. Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I would just like to say that I am just so happy to be a part of the Neil Truman Scholarship Foundation and the great work that we do. It's just amazing. It's just really amazing the work that we do in our communities with our residents. And I will say this to you, Ms. French, I'm just so proud of you and the leadership that you've taken as the president of this foundation. You've just really taken it to another level. And along with our entire board, I think Ms. Foster's probably our longest serving member, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm just so happy to be a part, to be affiliated with this organization. And, you know, Ms. Truman would be so happy. She would be so happy. She actually said on her sick bed that she wanted me to continue this foundation. And I'm so glad you took the mantle and ran with it. She said that she didn't want any resident of public or subsidized housing that wanted to go to college to be turned away. And I'm happy to say we haven't turned anyone away. And I just thank you for your leadership, moving this organization forward. The work that you do outside of your hours here at HABD, that you don't get paid for, going to meet with these high schools and talking with students, helping them prepare their packets. It doesn't go unnoticed. And we just want to thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Well, I got the mic. I just want to say thank you to the board members. Not one person cannot do this on their own. It's impossible. So I like to thank everyone on the board. I mean, I know that Trill see my number come across her phone, like, ah. But I thank you, Ms. Jefferson, for your leadership and your work as the secretary. I thank everyone that's on the board. And I'm sure our students and our residents thank you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. French. Our next report is a report on our tax credit property, third-party management property update. And that report is going to be presented by Ms. Valerie Holmes, who is our tax credit compliance manager. Ms. Valerie Holmes.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, the report I have provided to you all, it details our tax credit properties as well as the third-party management companies in our portfolio. Now, out of the 10 properties that are listed, 4 properties are owned by the Housing Authority. And of those 4 properties, 2 of those are being managed by a third-party company, and the other 2 are being managed by the Housing Authority. And that would be Tuxedo Terrace 1 and 2. And we recently took over management for those 2 properties in August. As for the remaining 6 properties in the report, they are owned by a different entity. Now, there is an opportunity for the Housing Authority to manage those properties at the end of those 50-year compliance periods. And I listed those dates in the report. Now, this means that once the 15-year compliance period is over, the Housing Authority has an option to make an offer to purchase these properties. Or we have a first right of refusal should the owners decide to sell the properties for any reason. So up until that time, right now, those 6 properties are actually being managed by different management companies. And I think the closest one where we will have an opportunity to manage would be Park Place 1. For an example, their compliance period ends December 31st of 2020. Also, there are 2 additional properties, tax credit properties that are coming online in the near future. They're Southtown, and it's going to be Ferriton Apartments. So that's basically a quick recap of the report that I submitted. Do you have any questions?
And in Southtown, I think we, part of the agreement, the MDA, is the housing authority has the opportunity to manage sometime after stabilization for 5 years. I think within 5 years, the housing authority had the opportunity to manage those affordable housing units in Southtown. And what was the other one?
Ferriton.
Farrington. We're looking at 2 years after stabilization.
That's correct.
So on these properties, is there already an agreed upon purchase price? Or if not, how is that set?
Are you speaking of Southtown and Farrington or these other?
Like Park Place.
Park Place. So what typically happens, Commissioner, is that the ownership entity will come to us and they'll try to sell based on the market value. And so it's come one, come all. They're gonna try to get as much money as they can for the property, and we have the first right of refusal. So we can match. This is somebody says, I'm gonna give you $10 for it. We match the $10 with the property. So they're gonna be looking at their private sector entities. They're gonna try to make as much money as they can from the sale.
Well, we own debt on that property, a significant amount of debt.
And so one of the tricky things about it, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Carol, on one or two of our properties, the owner owes us at some point.
All of them,
All of them.
with the exception
And
of.
so we have some leverage to be able to use to purchase the property because of what they owe us.
Yeah, they owe us a significant, because we're earning like 5% interest on, say, $6.5 million from, I don't know, 14 years ago. And then I have another debt that's at like a 0.5%, that still was like $3 or $4 million. So it's a significant amount of money that's owed. It should be enough to get, it was intended to get the properties back without us having to come out of pocket.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
So I guess this question is geared more toward Mr. Lundy, I suppose. I'm looking at Roosevelt City and Ben Green and Collegeville Center. I'm wanting to know what do we need to do to get management back in the hands of HABD. CWEX says that the term for Roosevelt City, the term ended in December 2019, and for Collegeville Center, the term ended November 6, 2019. And so I know we spoke about this at the last board meeting, but I just feel that we have good people that can manage these sites, and I just don't see where the third party in these two instances are providing any value to the agency. If I'm wrong, then let's discuss it. But I just feel that that the housing authority can manage these properties, and so I would just like to see what we need to do to get these two communities back in the hands of the housing authority to manage these two properties.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, yes, the report indicates and states that those contracts have ended. We purposely did not renew those contracts because we knew we were having this larger discussion. And so I think this is an opportunity to have that discussion. Would like to be able to, perhaps in working committee, to discuss the pros and cons of the housing authority resuming the management responsibility versus not. And one of the properties, Collegeville in particular, specifically, is a RAD property, and so there's some other factors that we have to think about when we talk about redeveloping a site that is approved through the RAD structure. So I would ask that we purposely did not enter into another contract, which do month to month, whatever we need to do, until we can decide what's in the best interest, long-term best interest of the agency. But would ask that we have opportunity to meet in a work session or smaller meetings to discuss the pros and cons.
Well, we're very good, and I understand that Collegeville is part of the RAD portfolio, but in the interim, I don't see why we can't manage it. In the interim, I don't think I don't think anything's going to take place anytime soon as far as demolition. So I would think in the interim we could still manage that property until we move forward with with the development of it. But I will support discussing this in committee so we can flush this out. But at the same time, I would like for the entire board to be a part of the discussion which cannot happen in committee, so we can figure out the best way to do it. But I am concerned about those two sites, and I just want to publicly support the Housing Authority of the Birmingham District managing those two sites. I'm willing to listen to both the pros and the cons, but I have enough information. I feel that I would, at this time, I would support both of those sites to be managed by the Housing Authority. Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, procurement outreach report.
Chairman, Commissioners, we have our Director of Procurement, Scar Edwards.
Good afternoon, Commissioners,
No.
staff, and guests. The HABD conducted a contractor vendor viewpoint survey, and the results are in the board package that was issued to the Commissioners. I'm going to briefly go over those in the interest of time, to make sure that everybody understands what's in the report. First of all, the survey overview is that we're going to go over these topics right here, the survey overview, how the survey was conducted, the survey results, and a summary of the results, and then we'll go to the questions and answers. On the overview, the report summarized the results of the contractor vendor viewpoint survey performed by the procurement office. The purpose was to gain insight as to how the business companies will be affected by the changes to a 1 year from a 2-year standard HABD contract term. The data obtained from the survey will be used to gauge sustainability of the current contractors that are being utilized by the Housing Authority and moving forward to a 1-year term contract. The results and analysis from the report will be shared with the Commissioners, which is being shared now, so that the evidence-based decision about the contract term period can be made. The survey was issued on January 2nd, 2020, and termed out on January 8th, 2020. We invited 100 participants to be a part of the survey. Out of those 100 participants, we had 42 responses. We issued those to our list of professional service contractors, non-professional, HVAC, plumbing, electrical. We also did a communication campaign to solicit other responses if necessary to make sure that we get a good response to the requested information we were trying to get. We had 5 questions. The questions were sent out to gain knowledge on what possibly we can actually have changed as far as the 1 year versus the 2 year. Question survey questions were: will you be interested in submitting a response to solicitations, RFPs, IFBs for contracts that have a 1 year term? Second question was, do you think 1 year contracts are better for you as a contractor vendor with HABD? Third question was, do you think 2 year contracts are better for you as a contractor vendor with HABD? Question 4 is, do you as a contractor vendor prefer 1 year term contracts or 2 year term contracts? Number 5 was, will a 1 year contract have a negative effect on your company? And 6 was, would you estimate the administrative or economic impact to your company, if any, regarding a 1 year versus a 2 year solicitation process? We asked them to explain. Based on those responses that we received out of the 42, question 1, where it says, will you be interested in submitting responses to solicitations, RFPs, RFQs, IFBs, 83% stated they will respond to solicitations that have a 1 year term. 17% said they would not respond to a solicitation that has a 1 year term. On question 2, where we asked, do you think 1 year contracts are better for you as a contracted vendor with HABD? They stated that 35% responded that a 1 year term is better. 68% responded that a 1 year contract is not better. On question 3, Do you think a 2-year contracts are better for you as a contractor vendor with HABD? 85% came back and said that a 2-year contract is better. 15% came back and responded that a 2-year contract is not better. On question 4, we asked the question, why do you as a contractor vendor prefer, or which do you as a contractor vendor prefer a 1-term or a 2-year term contract? The responses were 83% stated they prefer a 2-year contract, 21% prefer a 1-year contract. On question 5, will a 1-year contract have a negative effect on your company? 68% responded that a 1-year term would not have a negative effect on their company. 33% responded that a 1-year term will have a negative effect on their company. On question 6, what would you estimate the administrative or economic impact to your company, if any, regarding a 1-year versus a 2-year contract? Solicitation process, and we asked them to explain. Based on the 37 responses that we got for that question, 45% responded that a 1-year contract term would impact their business financially. Can I get to that on the screen? Sorry. 31% responded that it will not impact their business. 6% responded that they will accept a 1-year or prefer a 2-year contract term. 15% of the responses were invalid, which means that they just didn't respond to the question where you can identify what they were trying to state. 3% responded that they had no interest in a 1-year contract and would likely terminate the relationship. So to summarize, overall, the results were largely consistent based on each individual question. The following is a summary of the results. The majority of the HABD contracted vendors will still be interested in submitting responses for solicitations, RFPs, RFQs for contracts that have a 1-year term, and that percentage is set at about 83%. 68% of the vendor contractors think that a 1-year term will not be advantageous to growing their businesses. And this is based on the comments that it would cause additional paperwork, administrative time, and money. Will probably push the cost over to possibly the HABD on the back end. Number 3 is based on the overall response of 85%. The surveyed contract vendors stated that a 2-year contract would be more desirable due to the opportunity for growth, stability, and reduction of time and expenses. When surveyed on preference of a 1 to 2-year term contract, 83% of the contracted vendors preferred a 2-year term over a 1-year term. And the comments just reflect a longer term creates better financial stability. The commission have any questions?
So, very good detailed survey. And one of the questions that, question 4, you asked which do you as a contractor prefer, a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract? I think that was a very slanted question. That's like saying, would you prefer $200,000 or $100,000?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I put those kind of questions in there just to gauge to see if they're actually really paying attention to what the questions are asking.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just a little, it's just a little, in my surveys, I usually just do it, it's called a trick question.
Yeah, well, I would have expected 100% to say they wanted a 2-year contract or a 1-year contract because the money would be great.
Yeah, but they didn't
without having to re-up.
But it's just a quick trick question just to make sure that they're actually looking at the survey and paying attention to what the questions are asking.
Right. Well, yeah, other than that question, I thought it was well done. Yeah. But yeah, so thank you. I think that was a very thorough survey that you did in short order, I might add, because I think we just discussed this last month. So I appreciate you doing your research. And I think this really gives us a snapshot of what our vendors are saying. And so I think this is very helpful to us moving forward as far as looking at moving toward 1-year contracts in certain instances. And I'll tell you where I'm leaning, just to be honest with you. I think we might just need to just roll out a pilot and maybe just do look at doing a one-year contract for one entity and see how that works for 1 year. And to be honest with you, I would like to see it done in the legal services department. Since we are doing something new, we're splitting the contract. And so I think that would be a good way to gauge, to see if that's something that will work moving forward. So that's just a suggestion. I'm not saying, I'm just making a suggestion to the board that we look into maybe doing a pilot with our legal services contract, since it is a split contract, and maybe we could see how that works for 1 year. So, but I'll be quiet and I'll leave the floor up to anyone else that may want to discuss the survey.
I'm okay with pilot and we'll just see how, the market responds to it.
Right.
Well, actually, I'm doing it right now with the lawn services, so I'm doing it as a 1-year contract. It still has the option to renew for another additional year, but I'm doing it as a 1-year contract, and that's just to make sure that we don't run into performance issues, because lawn service is one of our biggest performance type contracts, where you may have a lawn cutting company that can't perform, or they're not doing a very good job. So I'm doing it right now as a 1-year contract.
Yeah. And that's the first time you've done it that way with 1 year
With
contract?
lawn services, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I would still like to try it with the professional service contract and see how that works, since we are, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but if we have different entities providing legal services, then that would be something new that we've never done before. I think we've always had one law firm that handled the entire legal services piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's not to say that it won't happen again. I just know that the contract is being divided up this time into different disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then that's something that we can discuss. All right, thank you very good. All right.
Chairman, Commissioners, our next report is on preventive maintenance. And I have Mr. McLaurin, who is my construction housing operations manager, to talk about preventive maintenance. Mr. McLaurin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lundy, commissioners, co-workers, and citizens of Birmingham. I've provided for you guys a preventive maintenance update report, and the preventive maintenance is one of the crucial components of maintaining a public housing entity, any industry where you want to correct problems so that they don't cause other problems. And I like to personally thank my staff, and particularly my asset maintenance supervisors. They're not present today, but I like you guys to go back out and say, he really gave y'all some kudos. My asset maintenance supervisors, along with my asset maintenance technicians, they are the ones who complete all this work. And I listed the amount of preventive maintenance that was accomplished, and in some instances, in a very short period of time, per site. The initial preventive maintenance program was established in October of 2018. And for Martin Simpson, that preventive maintenance program ran from October to March of 2019, because for a lot of our sites, when we get notice of REACT coming, we have to change gears. So when we got our notices, we changed gears to do it just a little bit differently. In your package also, commissioners, there is a tool that I use to direct my staff as to what to concentrate on. And that tool should look similar to this. This tool lists all the items that you would want to correct ahead of time when at all possible in a unit. And the left side of that page is the first priority, as I like to call it, the focus on side, because we found out from REACT that those items on that left-hand side, if you correct the bulk of those, you don't lose as many points. If you notice, the right-hand side is our secondary items we look at, and we try at least make one round of PM through the property, and then if time permits, we do our second round, or maybe even a third and a fourth round, and then we can do the secondary items. And in essence, within the calendar year, we hope to get around to the entire list. Sometimes that's possible, sometimes it's not. But in Martin Sampson, during that October 18 to March 19 time frame, they completed about 44% of their units using this tool to look at it. And in Martin Sampson, in the 2019 REACT inspection, the score went up 22 points. So that's that, you know, and as I can read down the entire list, but if you look at the report, every site that we perform preventive maintenance on, the REACT score increased by a minimum of 9 points, but a maximum of 30 points. And like I said, I want to congratulate my staff, because there were some who were saying it couldn't be done, that thought this was not the way to go with PM, but PM really makes a difference when it comes to maintaining your property. In North Birmingham, they was able to run their program on a different time frame. They started in January, and they ended it by May, but they had done 45% of the property. In Tom Brown is a smaller site, and they were able to do 100% of their property. In Mark Village, which is one of our largest sites, they was able to do 100% of their property because some sites were able to do more of their PM because their REACT schedule was further back in the year. But for instance, Martin Village scored in 2018. In 2018, let me find it. Martin Village scored a 41. And HUD sort of frowns on you when you score below 60. Martin Village scored a 41. In 2019, they increased their score by 24 points by scoring a 65. And that is attributed to the maintenance staff being able to go into the unit ahead of time and make a repair. In Illiton, they were able to do 100%, and this is more of a little inside. We was worried about Illiton. We was worried about Illiton. We were like, oh Lord, Illiton, we got hit hard out there. They brought back the QA people's office in Illiton, but Illiton knocked it out the park. Illiton was able to score in 2018 on their REACT scores. They scored a 54. Illiton showed out in 2019. Illiton increased their score by 31 points to an 85, and that's awesome. That's awesome. And once again, it's still a staff being able to schedule to go into the unit without being prompted by the residents to say, no, we come in to fix what's broken. And when they come in to fix what's broken, You know, they're doing a good job. REAC is coming behind them and saying not only are they making the repairs, but they're making the repairs to what is called industry standard. In the past, they made some repairs and they sort of just, you know, if they put duct tape on a hole in the wall, it would pass. Now they have to make that repair correctly. If it's plaster, they have to repair it using the plaster method. If it's sheetrock, they have to mud, tape it, sand it, then paint over it and make it look like it was never a hole in it. Loveland Village was able to do 100% of that. Cooper Green, which is one of our newer sites, Cooper Green did 25% of their preventive maintenance. And another thing I want to mention about my preventive maintenance program and the way I got it set up, it's a fluid program. Even though we would like for it to continue throughout the year, things crop up in public housing that dictate a mandate that's manpower do something different. So from time to time, you will see these interruptions in the PM program, but whenever you see that, it's my decision to stop it and redirect that manpower to the fire that we might have going on at the time. One, for instance, was the number of vacancies we had. We had to stop with the PM program, go help with the vacancies. Another one was REACT preparation. We have to stop with the PM program, focus specifically on REACT preparation. Like I said, the report lists all the sites that the preventive maintenance program was implemented. The only site that we didn't implement or preventive maintenance program on was Smithfield Court, and that was due to manpower issues. We hadn't fully staffed that site up with permanent workers, so we had to sort of suspend that. But all sites will re-energize their preventive maintenance program. We thought it would take place in the January. Now we're looking at the end of February because we have to wait until we have our annual UPCS inspection. We also use that as a tool to tell us what the majority of problems are in the unit. Then we can more direct our resources at what the UPCS protocol says is broke. And hoping by February, mid-February, everybody will have their PM program up and running. We will still use our first priority protocol tool, then second priority item, and hopefully we'll get a little more percentage on the sites that didn't quite get their 100%. Any questions on PM?
No, I don't have any questions. In the absence of Vice Chairman Todd, I think he would ask about the cyclical painting. I know that's his baby, and which I'm concerned as well. But I know that that's something that he pushed for. Listed, cyclical painting, and I think the HVAC installation. One of the sites, I can't remember which one. I think that's already been done. But I know the cyclical painting is something that he's concerned about, and I think as a board, that's something that we want to see a more robust, plan as far as the cyclical painting.
Yes, sir. Well, I took the liberty to research what's been done so far in the cyclical. I can't say it with my scared my teeth will fall out. In 2017, they were able to complete 17 of the circular painting in the live-in units, and I think they had selected a certain number of units that they was going to conduct this in. Well, in 2018, they did 17 units, and if my math is right, in 2019 they did 35. So they did increase the effort of getting out of those units, getting in and out of those units. And keep in mind, when we're doing a live-in painting, it takes a little bit longer to do than the vacant units. When you're dealing with the residents, scheduling with the resident, some of the units have more stuff in them than others, and you have to deal with the weather. So they've increased the amount. So and we always plan to do better. Every year we want to do better. So when I report again next year, hopefully that number will have improved.
Yeah, we hope so too. We hope we double the amount.
Yes, sir. And on the question about the AC has started in Kimbrough Home. That installation is probably about 30% in progress. And there was another AC condition at Illerton. That bid opening was yesterday, and it is still being reviewed by procurement.
Okay, very good.
Any questions?
Any questions, my colleagues? All right. Thank you, Ms. Maylon.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
Good job. Our next report is going to be presented by Assistant Vice President of House Operation, C.J. Turner, and he's going to report on the community center update.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mr. Lundy. I have just a brief update on community centers at a glance 2019. But first I want to give kudos to our community center supervisor, Ms. Wendy Brantley, and her staff as they're responsible for most of the content in this report. So during the first quarter of 2019, staff was tasked with creating 5 core principles that would be used in developing programs to support community centers. And those 5 core principles are self-sufficiency, personal growth, education, health and wellness, and financial literacy. March of 2019 marked the implementation kickoff date for 2 core principles at all 12 communities, with the target goal of implementing 1 core principal goal the remaining quarters of 2019 for seniors, young adults, and youth in our communities. We did, for summer 2019, we did have our Summer Youth Employment Program. And this is a program that is in conjunction with our summer camp, where we hire peer counselors, which are our residents ages 14 to 18, to kind of assist with summer camp, and of course provide workforce development training and workshops. And so the first week, the workforce development training workshops took place and included a partnership with Section 3 and Amazon, where Amazon taught soft skills to participating peer counselors. Workshops included but not limited to core concepts of positive youth development, how to prepare for an interview, money management, mock interviews, resumes, and more. And so we hired 112 peer counselors, that's about 7 to 10 peer counselors per site, who collectively received 22,535 hours of on-the-job training. And so our summer camp 2019 was a 7-week educational health and wellness and leadership development program. The community center staff provided a variety of activities of youth ages 6 to 13 to enhance them based on the 5 core principles. And so you should also have a copy of this slide in your packet as well. It appears I have up the shorter version of what's in your packet, but I guess this will work, I can still talk. The summer camp participation, we have a comparison from 2018 to 19, 451 participants in 2018, with 626 participants in 2019, which represents a 39% increase, so that's pretty good. Moving to Campus of Hope. The Campus of Hope has transformed a traditional community center into an opportunity center with a hub of social services and opportunities at one location. HABD has created nearly 25 partners for the Campus of Hope. Each partner agency was specially selected for its record of success in economic empowerment, educational advancement, health and wellness, and character and leadership to guide programming and partnerships. More than 1,800 residents and non-residents have participated in programming at Campus of Hope, And the Campus of Hope, as we know now, was recently designated as an Envision Center and continues to be a beacon of light, bringing hope to so many. Intramural sports. So we did throughout 2019 have intramural sports. We had dodgeball, cheer and dance, basketball, aquatics, track and field, and golf. And over to the right, of course, if you're following in your packet, you can see the number of participants that participated in those sports. Collaborating with CPAB, resident leadership remains focused on building a better community. Community engagement continues to partner with CPAB, assisting with programming, publicity, transportation, and support. The advisory board continues to thrive in each community by offering programs and resources to the residents of HABD. This deserves a hand clap. Last year, they doubled their numbers in Thanksgiving and Christmas give backs. They doubled their numbers compared to 2018. So let's hats off to CPAB for all their work. The CPAB continues to operate stronger and stronger each year under the leadership of Ms. Bertha Davis. They continue to partner with many organizations to help bring resources to our communities. This is another hand clap. CPAB was acknowledged as the Resident Council of the Year for the Outstanding Conference in July 2019, where they hosted over 32 public housing agencies that included residents and staff. So again, hats off to CPAB. CPAB and HABD staff are already planning for this year's conference, and the location and date is to be determined. In conclusion, monthly implementation of programming will continue to be held at all our community centers to target the 5 core principles in intramural sports. Each site will continue to design their programs based off demographics and the interests of the residents, and community engagement staff continues to develop community partners that are assisting in bringing awareness and change to our communities. And just for your knowledge, in your packet, there are some testimonials, that are also listed. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, very, very good, Mr. Turner. Looks like that the community engagement department is making some strides. I know I've been critical through the years as far as community engagement, daytime activity, and things of that nature. But it looks like we're making some strides. I will say that reading through the packet, one of the things that stuck out to me is that it kind of underscored what we talked about earlier with education. I was looking at this packet, and there's a lot of great things going on. Looks like the golf and the basketball, which I love, and all these other things. Look like we have a robust dodgeball program, but I didn't see a whole lot concerning the education piece, and that's more concerning to me than the sports that I love dearly. But I know we do the dropout recovery, the GED, but I'm concerned about folks before they get to that point.
That's right.
Right? I want us to make sure that we can educate our young kids before they get to the point where they have to go back and get the GED. And so this report underscores the need, the urgency for us to create more educational opportunities, and working with our families, not just the kids, but working with the entire family to making sure that our kids are not falling through the cracks and receiving the educational piece. Now don't get me wrong, I want to continue to dodgeball. I love it, but we just got to get more focused on empowering our families to provide an educated child. So that's one of the reasons why I'm pushing very hard that we move forward with this assessment, because I think that's going to tell us where we need to go. And I'm going to continue to push because I know that's the right thing to do. But nonetheless, I am pleased. I think we're moving in the right direction. This is a broader report than we received last year as far as what's going on in the community with the basketball and some other things. And so I'm encouraged by what I see. I just want us to kind of, not forget about the education piece. Well, to take a step further, I want us to put that at the forefront and make sure that everything else is ancillary.
So, Mr. London, Board, if you want, I can bring up our community center supervisor who can elaborate just a little bit more about the future plans.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wendy Brantley, and Commissioner Davis, I am totally in agreement with you about education. My degree is in education, so it's a passion of mine for kids and even adults to be educated and have the fundamentals to actually be successful in life. And so Mr. Lundy afforded myself and the resident council to go over to Bowling Green, Kentucky, I think back in September of last year. And one of the initiatives that they actually are in conjunction with us is the education component. So as Mr. Turner was speaking about the education component, that's something that's going to be coming up with the CPAB as a conjunction to help us with that after-school program and even with our adult literacy as well. And so the GPS will be a part of that conjunction. So we do thank you for your support and your critique, and we are looking forward to 2020 being a really good year.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, our final report, staff report, is going to be presented by Vice President of Real Estate Development and Capital Improvements, Mr. Stallworth, to discuss, give you an update on Tom Brown, Collegeville Environmental Report, Woodbine Home Ownership Development Initiative, and Southtown Court Redevelopment Update.
Good afternoon to everyone in attendance. I have several reports today, so I will try to lift the highlights from these dissertations that I gave you in the absence of time. And I don't know the order that you have them, but I'm going to start with the Collegeville update of the environmental testing first. And so this is something that the Housing Authority has been working on basically since 2013, trying to identify what exactly is the status of the soil out at Collegeville. And so, as most of you know, Collegeville and North Birmingham Homes is located in the 35th Avenue Superfund site, which has been designated by EPA. So since 2013, there's been a lot of testing going on Collegeville site as well as the larger neighborhood. And so during that time period in February 2013, EPA identified 17 areas needing remediation on site. So in the back of your package, you will see a map from EPA which details all of the areas where they perform soil sampling. And those areas that are highlighted in green are the actual areas where EPA identified contaminants on site, which consist of contaminants of metals. And those metals exceeded the removal management limits according to EPA. And so from that point, in January of 2015, EPA began cleanup activities in those areas highlighted in green. After those activities were complete, the Housing Authority received a letter from the EPA on June 29, 2016, stating that remediation in the 17 areas were complete and no further action was needed. And so in the report, there is the letter of confirmation from the EPA stating that the site was remediated and no further action was needed. The Housing Authority did question EPA's testing results because we wanted to see the results as well from the soil sampling and not just the letter. And so we requested that testing result from the EPA in 2017 to 18 and was unsuccessful in our efforts. And so to further confirm that the site had been remediated, HABD embarked on procuring Dominion due diligence in March of 2019 to perform further testing at the site. And that testing included drilling of 7 soil borings at various depths across the entire Collegeville property. And from that testing, what Dominion sent back to us is that the site is definitely not what we expected, to be heavily contaminated.
There was some isolated areas of elevated metals in some areas on the site, but they were not above EPA's removal management limits on that site. Dominion also recommended that HABD work to implement a site-specific soil management plan for protection of potential exposure from soil not investigated. So Dominion's report was limited in the sense of they could not test up under the existing buildings. And so as was mentioned earlier, the site is a RAD site, and we do propose to do some redevelopment there, whether it is new construction or even rehab. And so at that point, we will have to do some further testing to identify what's under the slabs and address that in our redevelopment plans. Also in 2019, EPA finally sent us their testing results for Collegeville, and they also sent us a statement that the site does not propose health hazard to the residents there. And so that, what I just stated, has been lifted from their report. Are there any questions?
So you say that the EPA sent a letter to the Housing Authority in September?
September of 2019?
2019.
Yes, and it was sent via a disk drive as well as via email.
Did the board get a copy of that letter?
I don't think.
Well, you're talking about the June 26th?
You said September 1st, 2019, EPA.
No, but I can provide a copy of that letter.
Is there any particular reason why you didn't think the board needed to have a copy of the letter?
Well, a lot of the language was very technical, so I just wanted to provide an overview, but we have no problem in providing that letter. And the reason why, another reason why I probably didn't provide it was because I sent the original letter that was sent back in June. So it's kind of a restatement of what's in that letter that was sent back in 2016.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Moving forward to Tom Brown Village Phase 1 overview. At our last meeting, it was requested to provide an update of Phase 1 at Tom Brown Village. And so as we see Tom Brown, we envision that it will be redeveloped over 3 phases, so it'll be a multi-phase approach. And so that first phase included the development of the transfer of 22 units from Tom Brown to the off-site Farrington development. And when we say transfer of units, that's the transfer of subsidy from those units to Farrington. And so Farrington currently is undergoing renovation. It consists of 104 units, which makes up 62 2-bedrooms, 43 bedrooms, and 2 4-bedrooms. The development is about 50% complete. The buildings are in various stages of completion. And just as an update, I want to provide some pictures of how the renovation is going on site. And so this is the before pictures of how the development looked before HABD purchased the property, which was 1970 look, T11 siding, and a lot of the major systems were beyond their useful life. And so as you can see here, the buildings were basically underwent demolition, not demolition of the structure, but majority of the building materials were demolished, such as interior walls, as well as the outside side. And so here you can see new sheathing coming back on the building, new windows being installed, which are energy efficient windows. And so this is a building on site that is substantially almost near completion. You see there has been some new stone siding added at the bottom of those buildings, as well as new hardy board siding at the top. And so it has a more modern look to it, New landscaping was installed as well. So this is just another picture. There's different color schemes out there, so this is another color scheme of how it looks. Interiors were fully gutted, and as you see here, this would be living room and kind of dining room space there. And so really no expense was spared. You see we have the Aura bronze fixtures. We have crown molding. You have the French doors in the back there. What you don't see is the LVT flooring that will be installed probably next week. Also, the site will have some amenities for families, and what you see here is workers preparing to install a pavilion center for families to go outside and enjoy, which will have a splash pad connected to it as well. So in the summer times in the Alabama heat, kids and families can splash around in the water. So that's a neat feature there. Some of the site amenities are the buildings there will be certified green buildings. LED lighting has been installed, new plumbing fixtures, HVAC equipment is all new. Mentioned about the outdoor pavilion, exterior security cameras. And so the Housing Authority is working with Alabama Power to develop security cameras on all of the poles, but not all of them, but utilizing the exterior poles that Alabama Power has on site. And also the development is fully fenced, and so it has a picket fence, wooded fence that surrounds the entire development. So there's just an overview of where we are with Farrington. The renovation is expected to be completed in May of 2020. 43 residents from the existing site plan to return back. The previous owner did the relocation of those residents so that we could empty out the site for renovation. And out of those residents, 43 want to return, and 61 have elected to move elsewhere within the community. A waiting list will be open in the next month to fill the vacancies in the 61 units. As I stated earlier, the opportunity was for 22 units to be transferred to Farrington. Surveys were performed on March 2019 of those families at Tom Brown in those 22 units. And out of those surveys, 3 families have elected to move to the Farrington development. And in the report, I also included a breakdown of the survey, which shows what other options those families took that would not like to go out to Farrington. And so out of those 3 families, we're looking at a total of no more than 13 children out of those 3 families combined. And so next, in meeting with city schools, after letting them know how many families would transfer to Farrington, we don't see that as a significant impact to their enrollment to the surrounding schools at Tom Brown. The Housing Authority also met with the Centerpoint Mayor and Jefferson County Superintendent, Mr. Gosselin, on December the 10th to discuss the Farrington project. During that meeting, the superintendent had some concerns, as well as the mayor, about the mass relocation of residents to Farrington. And so there was basically a miscommunication of what the Housing Authority was trying to do. So this meeting was very helpful in us clearing up exactly what was taking place. So we notified them it's not the entire Tom Brown that would be relocated to Farrington, just those 3 families. And the other vacant units will be filled with residents in the surrounding community, whether in Jefferson County or Birmingham. And so we have notified Jefferson County that we will continue to work with them as we get more demographics on new families moving in so that they can prepare for their school year and make sure that they have the space to receive those students. Also, HABD met with County Commissioner Knight and Scales on December the 17th, 2019. Throughout that meeting, we did get some support from both commissioners about the efforts that we're doing, but also to make sure that we have robust communication. And so we will be planning to have a town hall meeting with residents that are in 1 to 2 mile radius of Farrington to let them know what's going on that site. And so that's phase one. And I just want to end this presentation with the remaining Tom Brown redevelopment phases, which is spoken earlier. We have a RFQ that was out for a developer partner, which closed on the 13th. And just to bring a little bit more clarity to that multi-partner RFP, it was just another strategy that we decided to try out, because when we did single solicitations before, we didn't get a lot of response. Sometimes we wouldn't get any response. So it was just another strategy to try to see if we can get more participation from local developers. And so in that solicitation, the wording states that you can either apply for one site or you can apply to submit a plan for multiple sites. But I do envision that due to the responses that we received from that solicitation, that we probably will have to put out another one where we can look at some of the suggested advice that you provided, Mr. Chair. And so that will, after we have an approved developer on board, we'll begin continue our meetings with the residents at Tom Brown and working on identifying a master plan for that site. Are there any questions about the Tom Brown Farrington redevelopment?
What are the schools that will be impacted over at Farrington?
So Farrington is served by Centerpoint Schools. So that's Irwin, I believe, Centerpoint High School.
Yeah, well, thank you, Stalwart, for providing the report, and thanks for bringing clarity, some clarity to the proposal process. I still have some concerns, and I'm not 100% comfortable with the way it's structured. I still think it's slanted toward majority developers, and but we'll wait and see. We've had problems with this before, and so I'm gonna be watching this one really closely. I know we had a situation where we went out with RFP a few years ago, and there was some issues with a team. They put a team together of developers of different entities, and then once the team wanted to bid, then they wanted to remove the minority member of the team. And it's those type games that I'm going to be watching really closely, because some of these entities, they put up a united front when they want to go after a bid, and then when they receive the bid, then things change. And so that's my concern. And so I will be watching this RFQ process with Tom Brown and the cluster with Tom Brown, Marks Village, and Warden Simpson. I'll be watching those very closely.
Yes, and definitely increasing our minority participation is definitely our goal. There is some work that we still have to do on that, so there is some room and some tools that we can use to improve our solicitation. So I look forward to working together on that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next is the Woodlawn Home Ownership Development, which is proposed to be located out on Georgia Road. And this is a report to kind of bring clarity to the roles and the partners, and also what HABD's role is in the development. And so to date, there has been the development, excuse me, let me go back, kind of skipping over myself. So HABD has formalized partnerships and executed MOUs with the following partners that are listed in your reports that you have before you. And so those partners include the Woodlawn Foundation. And so the Woodlawn Foundation's role in this partnership is that they have the land that's located off of Georgia Road. And so HABD has an MOU which was executed in June of 2017 to identify a proposed plan for homeownership units on that lot there. And so once the plan is finalized, the Housing Authority will, at the board's approval, enter into an option agreement to purchase that said property for $100,000. Our next partner is NCRC, which stands for the National Community Reinvestment Coalition. HABD entered into an MOU with NCRC in February of 2018. NCRC role is basically to provide capital to actually construct the homeownership units at the development. And that's estimated to cost around $2.1 million. In our MOU, NCRC expects a 10% return from the sale of each unit that's constructed. The proposed unit sales prices, our desire is to have these sale prices range from 150 to the low 200,000. Initial performers have produced numbers that are higher than that, and so both of the partners, we agree that that's out of the range of the 80% AMI that we're looking for, and so we're going back to the table. At this point, we're in negotiation stages to look at how we can bring down those initial purchase prices. Next, we have Alabama Power. HABD entered into an MOU with Alabama Power in June 2019. Through this MOU, Alabama Power will utilize grant funding to provide energy upgrades and security equipment for each unit. Alabama Power is committed to providing a total of $108,000 in energy efficient upgrades for the proposed project. Lastly, the City of Birmingham on December the 3rd, 2019, approved $614,000 to cover infrastructure work associated with the homeownership development. And so this is just all of the funds that HABD has been able to leverage to help produce this development. And the MOUs are directly with HABD for each partner. So the partners do not have an MOU with each other, just with HABD. And so HABD's role in this development, as I stated earlier, was land acquisition to identify the land, as well as provide architectural and engineering services. So that's any of the testing, civil, and things like that associated with the proposed development. And so that would be a total investment of over $300,000. To date of that $300,000, the Housing Authority has only spent $72,000 on architectural and engineering services. The benefits of the homeownership development to the Housing Authority of the Birmingham District includes 12 high-quality newly built homes at a low upfront investment of only about $26,000 per unit from HABD. Also providing quality and energy efficient homes for eligible HABD homeownership participants. There are anticipated proceeds from the sale of the lot. So once HABD purchase the land for $100,000, that lot will be subdivided and each lot will be sold to NCRC for development. And so at the end of the sales, NCRC will reimburse the Housing Authority for those lots. Also, a percentage of proceeds from the sales of the units are currently being negotiated. And so that's just an overview of where we are right now with the Woodlawn homeownership development. And so as we get closer to really refining that pro forma and the financials, we'll bring those back to the board with our partners for approval. And also we won't engage in any official contract and agreement before coming back to this board. Are there any questions?
No.
Okay. Lastly, is the Southtown Court redevelopment update. And so the partnership, SDC and HABD are working tirelessly to make sure that we are in a good position to submit for the 9% low-income housing tax credit application. So we just want to provide you with an update of where we are today.
And so I would like to bring up Ms. Carol Clark, who is the General Manager for SDC.
Good afternoon. SDC is Southside Development Company. I know we get called a lot of stuff, but SDC is our nickname. And we're a special purpose entity formed really exclusively to assist HABD in achieving its goals with the Southtown redevelopment. And we are a company formed of several companies, and so especially for the sake of the new board members, I'd like to just run through our composition. Again, I serve as general manager. Corporate Realty is a full-service real estate, commercial real estate company under Robert Simon, and this company provides development, property management, and brokerage services. They are a 1/3 partner in SDC. My office, the SDC office, is actually located at Corporate Realty, and the development team there, under the direction of Brian Wolf, who's actually here today, provides technical assistance, and the administrative team there provides administrative support to SDC for the day-to-day operation, things like payables and expense tracking and so forth. As the name suggests, Corporate Realty has a core competency in the area of delivering corporate and regional headquarters and medical office buildings. But in keeping with today's urban development trends of creating a vibrant live, work, play, stay environment, those buildings are often delivered in the context of a mixture of uses that might include retail, office, housing. The core competency is office, but also retail, hotel, and certainly housing in this instance. Corporate Realty is also expert in public-private partnerships and working with communities to deliver redevelopment strategies that meet a common set of shared objectives over several stakeholder groups. And that's certainly the case for this development at Southtown. So BREC and SPM are sister companies. BREC Development under Stephen Heidinger and SPM Management under Ed Weldon are also combined a 1/3 partner in SDC. SPM specializes in professional property management for apartment communities across the United States since 1977. They're actually located about 1 block from Southtown, maybe a block and a half from Southtown. And we're really looking, as part of Section 3, at some internships because it'd be walkable at least until people are relocated. But we want to get started before relocation. So BREC Development specializes in the renovation and acquisition and construction of multifamily. They work in several states, have been involved in a wide variety of multifamily developments, affordable and conventional, across the Southeast, plus Minnesota, New York, and Texas. Last but not least is the Benoit Group, and this is our African-American partner, and I'm proud to say it's a 1/3 partner, full 1/3 partner like the other partners, led by Eddie Benoit, and we have Dale Davis, who's a part of that group, who's with us today. Dale, if you could wave. Everybody knows Dale, but you don't know which hat he's wearing. So today he's wearing his Benoit Group hat. But Benoit, the Benoit Group, led by Eddie Benoit, has a core business focus on the development of affordable mixed income housing, independent senior living, and purpose-built student housing. Again, most often developed in a mixed-use context. And Benoit has worked extensively with public housing authorities throughout their development career and have their redevelopment efforts mainly concentrated in Georgia and Illinois. But also, just at the bottom, we have some other team members, Brasville and Gorey, who really kind of needs no introduction. They're one of the largest privately held construction companies in the country, and they're headquartered in Birmingham. AG Gaston Construction is another minority partner. As a joint venture, they are providing the construction management, mainly a lot of pre-development estimating. They've supported us with scheduling and other things to mostly estimating to date and a little bit of scheduling. Gensler is our planning partner. They are a very large global integrated architecture, design, planning, and consulting firm with over 5,000 employees across 44 offices, but they have a really strong urban design practice and urban mixed-use practice that we've really enjoyed working with. And so that's really our team. Of course, HABD is really the biggest member of the team with us, and we're glad for that.
So just to give an overview of progress today, back in 2016, HABD selected Southside Development Company as a developer partner. After we got past that phase, master planning of the proposed site began, and during that period, there were a lot of community meetings that were held, open house events, not only for the residents at Southtown, but also for the larger community, just to get feedback and their input of what they would like to see at the site there. So we actually had opportunities for families to write down on sticky notes and note cards things that they would like to see at the development, and it was incorporated into the master plan that was approved in the MDA, which was negotiated and executed in late 2019. And so from that point, both partners have hit the ground running to bring this project to fruition.
Just to quickly elaborate a little more on the community engagement that Corey spoke of, I wanted to just kind of curate the photos that really show the advisory council process and the open house format, which really allowed residents who participated to have one-on-one interactions with the planning team, as he mentioned, the sticky notes. I'd also like to note that HABD always had their full complement of support services, so that as residents learned that the full site was being demolished, if they had concerns about relocation, they could not only have someone to ask questions, but also meet with a case manager to go more in depth about their needs. This is just an example of the advisory council, which was the smaller group that we worked with. It included resident leaders, both from the resident council and the Southside Neighborhood Association, as well as city officials and others. So it was and neighboring businesses and stakeholders and institutions. So it was a pretty inclusive process, very collaborative.
And so mainly thus far we've been talking about efforts that have taken place in 2018. But outside of that, the Housing Authority also held 5 town hall meetings throughout 2019 to make sure that the residents there were engaged in where we were specifically in the redevelopment process. Those meetings included meetings like discussing the Section 18 demolition application. Also, we shrink down, instead of doing town hall meetings towards the end, we did more smaller series where we were able to meet with residents probably 3 times in one day to really drill down on, what their concerns or provide clarity to some of the information centered around this redevelopment. Also, our communication efforts included videos that were recorded, which had myself, Ms. Duntrell Foster, and Ms. Kanji Drake, where we talked about things such as the redevelopment master plan, Section 8 vouchers, as well as relocation. And those videos were posted on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram account, again, as an effort to try to spread the communication about what's going on in Southtown. Also, there was a Campus of Hope outreach event that took place towards the end of 2019 to make sure that residents in Southtown were aware of all the great benefits at the Campus of Hope. And also, something new that was developed that I haven't seen since I've been at the Housing Authority, which is a newsletter that's delivered to the resident's door, which gives a current overview of where the redevelopment is, and that's what you see to the right of the screen there, and we've also provided it for the board. In future distributions, we will make sure that the board receives that in real time as we mail it out to the residents. You'll get it at the same time. Okay. So this is the current situation, the current master plan for Southtown Court. And so the plan focuses on making sure that replacement housing returns to the site first, before commercial and residential could take place simultaneously. But the priority is that the blocks you see, D1 and D2, which would be the replacement housing for families in Southtown, that those two parcels there be developed first. Also, in the agreement, HABD will retain 88 units, existing units, as temporary relocation housing for families who have children that are in grades K through 8, who would like to maintain their kids in the same school zones. And so we wanted to provide that housing for them, and that will take place at parcels A1 and A2. So we'll retain those 88 units there, and once D1 and D2 are redeveloped, families in the 88 units will be able to move into those new units. And so Block B, which we call D1 and D2, will deliver 220 replacement units, which is above the minimum that was stated in the MDA of 200 units there. And those 220 units will consist of a 60-unit family building, as well as a 160-unit near elderly building. And so it'll be for seniors that are near elderly and elderly seniors. So they could be anyone that's between the ages of 56 and up. And so it's very important that HABD facilitates the demolition and relocation of families in Southtown Court during 2020 to make way for the first phase of redevelopment on site.
So remember where Block D is, because this is the Block D detail. So just to drill into the detailed site plan and how that block is divided. The 60 family units will be on the west side, and the 160 senior units will be on the east side of the parcel. We are wide open on a 9% tax credit application with HABD as co-developer, and would like to come back to you in a couple of weeks, if possible, with express details about, more details about the development and the application. So this is providing an overview and the site layout at this time.
So I just want to add also that, as Ms. Clark stated, this is our conceptual plan. We have met with Mr. Queese Reynolds, the resident council president, to go over the first draft of this with her. She did have some questions that we will address as well as we continue to flesh out the design of this building.
Right. Yeah, so after post-award, if we're successful in competing, which we think we will be, compete effectively for the 9%, we will have 4 months to conclude the design. So we will start some design and have more interface with the residents, because they've always asked for input in the design phase. So we're going to honor that and structure that into the process. So this is the overall work plan, and we'll let Corey talk about 2020, because it mostly hinges on HABD doing what was promised in the MBA.
Yes. And so in the first quarter of 2020, that includes relocation assessments, which is supposed to take place in February, planned to take place in February. And that's where we'll do that final assessment again as promised, to make sure that we have residents' preferences as relates to relocation and whether they would like to come back to the site or move off-site. And then from there, our supportive services department will meet with the residents to make sure that we take care of every need that they have during the relocation process. Also in the first quarter, we will expect approval of our disposition application from HUD, which allows us to demolish the site and dispose of it to our developer partner for development. And so we feel that we are very near to receiving approval on that application within the coming weeks. Also, HABD is working to facilitate the design of the demolition, and so that will include procuring an engineering firm to design the phases of demolition and placing it out for bid so that we could select a contractor to do the demolition work.
So in earnest, after the assessment, the resident relocation would happen in the second and third quarters with the demolition of the site and utility relocations happening in Q4 so that we can deliver Block D to get those 2 housing developments going as our phase 1. So in 2021, as soon as demolition on the Block D portion of the site concludes, we would relocate utilities and then deliver those pads for those Block D developments that we showed you. And so the 9% has a really tight delivery time frame, so we really have to get going on that. So time is of the essence. I know we've worked on this for quite a long time, but it's time to fish or cut bait at this point. And we really want, the board asked us to come and not be, provide regular updates. So we're looking to do that, and you can suggest the frequency, and we'll follow the lead of the desires of HABD in preparing these.
Yes, as Carol stated, we just wanted to come before the board to provide an update, and also we will come back before the board to request approval to actually partner to submit that 9% application. Are there any questions?
So the demo dispo application has not been approved yet, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so I've been in contact with the reviewer at HUD. They asked for an updated appraisal, and that's something that we're working on. And so we should have that updated appraisal by next Friday. And after that, we hope to hear some good news.
All right, and so you said that, so give me a timeline on the request for proposal on the demolition design.
So, excuse me, losing my voice, a lot of presentation today. So that design will take about 60 days to complete the design of that. And so we're anticipating probably putting that out for bid sometime in April. And then it'll be out for bid for about 30 days. And then hopefully to bring it to the board for approval in May.
And so what you have here is that demolition would not take place until the end of.
Yes, demolition will take place late fall of 2020. So we want to make sure that we have a contractor in place well before it's time to start that demolition work.
Okay, all right, and so are you guys working with the CPAB and their group concerning the demolition piece? I know they're going to be partnering with a contractor, hopefully to do some demolition work. So I just kind of want to see where we are with that process. How's that process going? Is it a fluid process as far as working alongside the CPAB to make sure that they are going to be up and ready by the time of demolition?
So there was an initial meeting, but we want to meet with the CPAB again to provide an update just of where we are in the schedule so that we can talk about those efforts and just give them an overview of everything that's needed for that demolition to take place in the scope and all of that work. So we wanted to bring it before the board first and then continue our meetings with CPAB and the residents.
And just to add to that, that we still have a little bit more, another phase of training that we're going to have between CPAB, and we're going to combine CPAB, the contractor, and begin to sort of narrow some of the things to do list to get them prepared for demolition. May or may not the fact of the matter may or may not be ready to participate solely as a demolition contract for Southtown Court. The goal is to prepare them for demolition activities. Hopefully, we will be ready for Southtown Court for the CPD demolition initiative to participate in that demolition. If not, we need to be prepared as an agency, and Chair, we've talked about this a few times, as an agency to continue to go forward if we have to use a different contractor to do that particular phase of the work.
And I would like to add also that the demolition is expected to take place in 2 phases. The first phase will be a large portion of the site so that the developer partner can start with the redevelopment and placing in infrastructure. But as I stated earlier, there'll be a certain portion that will remain, and that's the 88 units, Block A. And so that will be bidded out for demolition at a later date.
I just wanted to ask the question of Carol Clark, if you would. Are we're still looking as we move forward I know we're going after the 9% tax rate. It's a small, short window and of time, and we hope to be able to squeeze that in. We've got a lot of check boxes, a lot of boxes we got to check to get to that submission date in early or mid-February. That's one thing, but we've also been discussing moving forward with the 4% development for the elderly and near elderly building, so that we will have, in fact, if we miss out on the award in 2020 for the 9%, that in fact we'll be well along the way and underway in developing these senior near elderly building of 160-something, 70 units.
Yes, sir, that's correct. That is not a competitive process. We're using the HUD 221D4 and the 4% bond, and so we feel very certain of that. It's going to happen in the time frame. It's pretty much guaranteed to happen. There are no contingencies there.
Yeah, so, I just want to make sure that I'm clear as far as the demolition piece, the joint venture. I understand there may be some additional training that needs to take place. I would like to see how we can expedite whatever needs to be expedited in order to make sure that the CPAB gets a fair shake at the demolition on Southtown. I understand that we're up against timelines and things of that nature, but I just want to make sure that we're not advertently creating delay tactics to not meet the deadline for them to be able to participate. And so I just want to make sure that we are, the Housing Authority is doing everything on our end to assist the CPAB to making sure that they are part of this process. I personally think that there's been ample time to assist the CPAB to make sure that they were ready to move forward with this process. I sat in on one meeting and I understand there may have been some delays. Not sure whose fault it was. And I know that the CPAB was working with our legal team at the time, I wasn't a part of those meetings, but I just want to be assured that there are no advertent delay tactics that will cause the CPAB not to participate in this process.
Well, I can assure this board, there has been none and there will be no delay tactics in going forward with the demolition joint venture. I mean, that was the idea that that we discussed a few years back, that emanated from this administration, and we're very passionate about it. We want to see it happen. Every entity, every piece of it has to be ready to go forward because, we want to make sure we do a good job in the redevelopment of Southtown Court itself. We want to make sure it meets all the standards and requirements for going forward with demolition.
And Mr. Chairman, it was our understanding as a developer partner that that was why HABD wanted to do the demolition, to give that entity a chance to compete for the contract. So that's been our understanding.
Right, well, I'm gonna make sure they get a chance to come. Very good.
All right, thank you all for your time.
All right, thank you.
Good job, Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Oh, yeah. Okay, person's desire. Is that it? Yeah, person's desire. Desire speak for HABD board. Okay, Mr. Knight? No, okay. All right, Ms. Body?
I'd like to say to Mr. Lundy and the board, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All of the things that I've heard is very good, but that doesn't help me none and my residents in Illerton when I had to put on an extra layer to sleep in my bedroom because my bedroom was cold because of the situation with the heating and the air. I mostly want to dump this on the board members because they were here and our situation existed before Mr. Lundy came. So I'm dropping this on in the board's lap. We have 2 buildings that you all have promised to tear down. You haven't torn down. And we want to know in Illerton, what are your plans for moving Illerton forward? You're doing something up everywhere else, but we want to know, what's your plan for Illerton? I know you keep saying we waiting on it to feel it didn't have anything to do with us. So today, I stand before you, the board, dumping it on you. Not the new member, because he doesn't know anything about it, but Mr. Davis and Mr. Lundy. Thank you.
All right. So since you're gonna dump it on me, let me give some clarity to it. So I know with the Illerton, that project, and I'm not passing the buck. Ms. Blunt, because I'll take responsibility for whatever the board has not done. I'm man enough to take some blame. I'll assume some. Okay. All right. So I know the project started before I got on the board. The project had already started, the renovation of Illerton. I'm not sure the exact date, but I got on the board in 2015, and I know that the project had already gotten off the ground because I remember the first month that I got on the board, or maybe it was the second month. There were some issues with construction, and the construction company at the time was asking for more time. So I do remember that.
All of that, but there was then, this is that.
Right. So you know, now as far as where we are in the process with the demolition, I'm not certain as far as what needs to be torn down and what needs to be redeveloped. But I will tell you this. I know there's an RFP out right now for a developer partner to redevelop Smithfield and Illerton. It's a combined deal, which I know those are two communities that are in close proximity, but I'm not certain of that cluster as well. But I know that's actually ongoing right now. Is the RFP to redevelop Smithfield and Illerton that is out there. So I know that the
What's in the RFP?
The Housing Authority, along with the City of Birmingham, and looking to go after a choice neighborhood grant, apply for a choice neighborhood grant. To my knowledge, I think that's still the case. I'm not sure where we are on the application, but I think I'm correct in saying that the Housing Authority, along with the City of Birmingham, has applied or in the process of applying for a choice neighborhood grant. I don't know if that's by way of an implementation grant or a planning grant or a combination of both. So that part I do know. Now the Legion Field piece, I can't speak to that. I don't know anything about what's going on at Legion Field. So I would reserve my comments for Legion Field because I don't have any knowledge of what's taking place or what's supposed to be proposed for Legion Field.
Well, can you tell me what your plans are for the air conditioning system? As the president, it's good for a leader to go through the things with the residents so they can empathize.
Yeah.
And I know for sure the residents have been telling me that they were not getting heating as they should, nor air as they should. And I experienced that this summer because Miss Lewis had to call you all, and you came and put a window unit in my unit, and it also made my electricity bill go up because I had to keep it at a certain number in order to keep the cost.
Right.
So can you tell me where we are when it pertains to the air conditioners?
So at this point right now, I'm gonna hand the ball to Mr. Lundy. We do not.
He ain't gonna know.
Well, Ms. Bonnie. Now, I'm gonna pass the ball to Mr. Lundy. He handles the operations of his agency.
Yeah, he does, but y'all his boss.
So I'm gonna hand the ball off. Okay, Mr. Lundy, if you can speak to Ms. Bonnie.
Ms. Bonnie.
Y'all always dump it on him. Y'all his boss.
Ms.
I
Bonnie.
understand that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Ms. Bonnie, there's a lot of different components that you brought before the board this afternoon, and see if I can address as many of them as I can. With respect to we have a process been in place for many years through HUD. It's called the annual planning process, and we have a 5-year planning process. And in that process, we engage the residents, the staff, to look at how we want to spend our capital improvement dollars over the next 5 years, over the next year. And every year we have to update it. We bring that process back to this board, and we talk about programs and policies, and we get approval, we send it to HUD. We have to stay within that plan as we go forward with redevelopment. Now, I say that because there's an opportunity for the residents of Illiton, of Marks Village, or any other site to give their list of wants or desires based on what they experience in their community. Now, of course, we don't have an infinite amount of money, so we have to prioritize those things as we go forward. But it is a process that we utilize in order to get your concerns on paper as part of our plan as we move forward. Now, of course, if anything of an emergency occurs during the implementation of those plans, we have to do a sidestep and address that issue. So that's the process for that. With respect to the heating and air conditioning, as you know, the chairman mentioned that we had a contractor several years ago, and we were able to complete we had like 3 phases. So we were able to complete the first 3 phases of the redevelopment of Illiton Village. It came to my attention that the contractor at the time had a flawed, should I say, design for heating and air conditioning. So the way they had it designed, they had the condenser unit inserted inside the apartments, and did not provide enough ventilation for the heating and air conditioning to properly operate. And typically what you do, you'll see a condenser unit on the outside, where it can breathe and get air. And so what we've had to do was put together, we had to do a design, get our design team to do a design to create a way to reposition those air conditioners. Something, and many of them, and staff can correct me, I think we probably may have to put new air conditioners in some of those. Am I correct?
We budgeted in the
Because-
capital funds for those
Yeah.
and for the demolition.
And so that's, so what's the status of that?
So that procurement closed on Monday, to identify, contractors to do that work.
Okay.
And so those systems will be installed on the exterior of the building now, which will solve, that issue of them not meeting the temperature.
And so, Ms. Body, so we got a procurement that's gonna close very soon for the new air conditioning, heating air conditioners that we put in phase 2 and 3, so that they can breathe properly, they can operate properly. So that's underway. With respect to the other part of the site that's undeveloped, we have to develop a redevelopment plan. As you know, we've got 14 sites, and all of our sites are aging in place. And so we are trying to address all of them in a systematic way in partnership with residents, stakeholders, and available funds. Just want to share that with you. So with respect to the redevelopment, I think the chair mentioned about the choice neighborhood grants. There was a choice neighborhood grant application that was out there in 2019. We made a collective decision not to go forward with that because it's just a short period of time. It was an implementation grant. And typically what happens in this particular grant process, HUD expects, for the most part, for you to respond to an application for a planning grant because it is so detailed. It requires a lot of collaboration, and even in the planning grant, you have to identify resources. You got to commit those resources to a specific project, and so you can imagine you got a lot of partners and different entities that have to commit funds to the redevelopment of the site. So we pulled back on that. We've got another solicitation that will be going out soon, as I understand it, for the procurement of a entity to assist us with planning grant, implementation grant, and to assist us with moving forward with some development. Now, the way that we did this is a little different because we didn't want to get pigeonholed into a specific location. And the reason being is because when the professionals come to your community and they do their analysis, sometimes the analysis will say, well, we're gonna be more competitive if we look at doing a choice neighborhood implementation grant in this area versus another area, because you gotta look at resources. And there's specific questions that we have to answer in order to be competitive. We just can't say we're gonna do it for this site and think we're gonna get it in. So we have to really be strategic in how we go forward with that. So that's what we're doing now. And so we would love to sit down with you and just talk a little bit more, just talk to your resident body in terms of what
Because
we're
it looks as
doing.
if you just not doing anything and you just not saying nothing and you're not doing anything. So I have to bring these questions to you so that I can have answers to take back to my people. Because it looks as if you're not doing anything.
So you're having a meeting this evening, this body?
No, I've had my neighborhood meeting yesterday.
Okay.
But we won't have our resident council meeting until the 31st.
Okay, so if you
If
would,
you want to send someone to
be
talk.
willing to invite us, yes, we'll be
Yes,
happy to
please
come.
do.
Yes, ma'am.
Y'all, and now listen, let me say this. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. We don't want to hear
a whole lot of what you saying you gonna do, and you have nothing to back it up. We need something in writing to the point of what you're planning to do.
Well, when we come to your meeting, we'll
Who else
hand something
coming?
out.
You and who else? Because you've never been to one out
We
with
could
the council.
we could talk about it. I'll
Okay.
come and I'll bring the staff.
You've never been to one out council meeting. And I mean, it's open to whoever wanna come. But we would love to have you so that they can know who you are.
Well, invite me, I'll be happy to come.
Okay, well, I'm inviting you,
Okay.
31st.
All right.
You and Cardell too.
Yes, ma'am, I'll be there. I'll be there. All right, yeah, so I mean, I'm glad we got
And we'll
here.
move the meeting to the community center, and we won't have it in that space that you allocated to, we'll put it in the community center, so you can have space to stretch.
Very good. All right, thank you, Ms. Body. And so, that's good we had this discussion, because like I said, I was just kind of, going off what I
I know.
thought, and, I didn't even know that we weren't moving forward with the, Children's Neighborhood Grant, but we'll have that conversation later.
Thank you.
All right, we have lost our quorum, so we're just gonna go ahead and if I can get general consent from Dr. Hood, we'll adjourn.